And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 80th episode of HEX Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin, and I'm going to jump right into it tonight because I want this video to be able to be posted in response to whenever someone genuinely wants to understand how to respond to certain FUD that is out there. And in crypto, that stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And it looks like somebody who has a lot of facts to back them up is trying to say that HEX is a scam. And they're presenting certain arguments, and I want to go through each of those and give my response to them. Because unlike an actual scam, HEX is something that is it's just new. People haven't seen anything like this before. And we're going to pick apart each part of the discussion. We can give props where props are due, but at the end of the day, you'll be the one to decide whether HEX is a scam or not. And I know normally, like the Twitter army is out there, and sometimes we're out there to educate, sometimes we're out there to fight back and that sort of thing. But I really want to break down because this is an article that I think that some people haven't been particularly sure of how to respond to each of the different arguments, because I've been studying economics on my own for a long time, and because I've been studying HEX for thousands of hours, I think I'm qualified to take a stab at explaining where this article goes wrong. The article was updated on June 15th. It does not say who the author is. It was published on wantfi.com/Richard-Hartz. HEX token is a brilliant scam. Okay. And one of the things that this article does is it presents a certain amount of facts that are true. The only problem is that when you're talking about complex economic systems, if you get a few things backwards, as we'll point out, then your conclusions are wrong. And so while this article is written in a way that's trying to convince you that HEX is a scam, we're going to pick apart each of the arguments and explain why they're wrong. So so it starts off showing a lot of things that I would probably agree with. 99% of cryptocurrencies are scams. There are a lot of scams out there. And so just because we agree with that particular point doesn't mean that HEX is a scam. Okay. There's going to have to be much clearer evidence than that, right? And so I'm just going to work my way and hop around through a few of the different points here. I'm not going to go directly in order, but it'll be, just hopping around. So HEX being the only cryptocurrency that this person, again, you're not identifying who you are. There's lots of people out here showing our faces, not being scared to conceal our identities, but whoever wrote this article decided that they wouldn't say who they were. They wouldn't show their face. That's because maybe they're a coward or they know they're wrong. We're not sure. So it's the only cryptocurrency that I have ever heard of, right? Like they're writing in the first person. That's a little bit unprofessional, but I guess we're taking anecdotes here. To use ads to market in magazines, buses, taxis, physical mail, hold shady airport seminars, and use TV to try to bring in a whole new class of quote unquote victims outside of the regular cryptocurrency speculators. Well, that's what Bitcoiners have done. That's what every product does that has some sort of grassroots effort, is people are holding seminars. I went to 6 out of the 40 seminars that you're referring to, and there's a picture of Patrick and Abit further down on the page here. They're not paid shills. They did this out of altruism, and that's something that maybe the world has forgotten. Maybe maybe you see altruism as shady, but I know that they paid to rent out those spaces, and I know that they were trying to pay it forward to the next person. And so if you define that as shady, then there's probably something wrong with you. um, you know, Trying out different forms of marketing, that's because this is a grassroots effort, you know, and it's not a company. And I know that that's really hard for a lot of people to understand. When you see something new, you might be scared of it, or you might not really think that it has the best intentions at heart. But with this form of guerrilla marketing, as it's sometimes called, you're not always going to see things done in the most professional manner. That's because none of us who are out here using our free speech to talk about HEX and paying our own dollars to send out hundreds of thousands of postcards in the mail, like, you know, it might look a little bit disorganized, or it might look super organized depending on who you are looking. But at the end of the day, um, the message is going to be sent out however that decentralized, organic person, however they're used to putting things out. For me, uh, it's taken me quite some time to get up to speed, really, to understand how to speak about cryptocurrencies and speak about HEX, because this is something that's new for me. And I think it's new. So it's not a new class of victims, it's a new class of people who are organically marketing. And so maybe I could see how somebody would get that confused. But again, HEX is something, it's not a company, it's not like all these other cryptocurrencies, it's not a Ponzi scheme. But so just to write this kind of a summary, and then to say, yeah, HEX is a scam because there are people holding seminars about it. You're going to have to give better examples than that of why it's a Ponzi or why it's a scam. And they try to do that. I want to jump down to actually the Ponzi situation. This is entirely long, comprehensive. Having an instant user base, like, that's part of the design. Again, that's not forking something. That's one of the most legitimate ways that you can distribute new tokens to people. And HEX was a hybrid uh, of a lot of different models. For example, proof of work and proof of stake models. It was also it was a UTXO fork of Bitcoin, which most people don't understand, but basically you're making a list of addresses that can be publicly verified, and these are the people who can free claim HEX. So just because you're giving away free coins doesn't make something a scam. It's the opposite. Giving away free coins, depending on how you do it, is either good or bad tokenomics. But that has nothing to do with giving somebody something for free. That's how almost all software in the world works. HEX is a type of software. It's a decentralized financial software. And so just because you're saying that makes it a scam doesn't make it a scam. It makes it using things that work in the world, and that's not a scam. Richard getting a copy of the adoption bonus and referral bonuses. Well, obviously the code is right there and it was public from the get-go. And we can look at the Chainalysis and we can see that it actually benefits the users whenever Richard holds 97% of the coins. The person who wrote this article identified that maybe 88% of the coins were held by one entity. But it's actually super common for tokens and projects to send things to a burn address. And uh, it's okay that Hex, like didn't say publicly whether the origin address coins would ever be sold on the market or not, but so far they have not been sold on the market. So that's another major area where this article is just flat out wrong, is because you have not been diluted. The point that they're making is that you got diluted by all of the coins that went to a single address that then spread them out over 3,000 different addresses. Well, it would only dilute you if those coins were sold. So even though you were virtually diluted in a sense, that was a design decision. It allowed the market cap to be higher. It allowed the inflation rate to be higher. There are so many other areas where we really have to take a nuanced perspective, and we have to understand, again, the economics, the tokenomics, the design decisions that were put into Hex. And we can always go back to look at the chart. There are ways in which Hex acts like every other currency, and then it acts like every other cryptocurrency, and there are other ways where it doesn't. But the fact that the coins that went to the origin address never got sold to this day actually makes Hex stand out. Now, another takeaway that we'll get from this entire breakdown that I'm doing is that we can't know everything about the future for certain. Hex actually allows us to know more about the future of this cryptocurrency than almost any other currency or any other currency in the world, because we have a chart of future market supply. We know when everybody's coins that are locked, we know when they're coming out, basically, because we can see it on the blockchain. And if you go to hex.vision, you can pull up a chart of expiring stakes, and you can see the future market supply. That's a really cool thing that hasn't ever existed, because there hasn't ever been a way to lock up your money so tightly, basically. Which, again, it's something that people do by choice. But at the end of the day, FUD creates opportunities. And so when we can have a rational response, when we can point to the people who have studied Hex the most, and those people are able to explain and teach everybody else, like, this is why we think the game theory works this way, right? That's what cryptocurrency is based on. That's what behavioral economics is based on. It all goes back to the probability of human behavior and our ability to predict what's happening. When it comes to these origin address coins, they've only ever acted in the best interest of Hex. Another reason why those coins existed, or how they benefited Hex, whether it was intentional or not, is during the big payday, which was a one-time event that allowed 99% of all the coins to be staked, because it created an incentive for people to lock. Some people got a 30% bonus just for locking for like 2 or 3 days. The origin address locked during that time as well, because if it hadn't, then like 50% would have been given out or more, which then people could have turned around and dumped. And so we see, just like in some ways, just like the Fed, the origin address allows certain levers to be pulled that have the potential to benefit the system. Unlike the Fed, it's got a track record that is only creating benefits to the people who are holding the token, right? And so this idea that you're getting diluted, or that the origin address coins are a problem, we haven't seen that play out. And whereas almost every other cryptocurrency, when it gets to 2.5 years old, the founder has cashed out something. Here, we know the founder hasn't. And, so that's, you can take that for what it's worth. but again, it's been positive. FOMO, when Lambo. Okay, well, you're not going to change the psychology of people in the world. Some of these marketing strategies that have been used, that it's what worked for other projects, and I don't think it's illegal, at least not yet, for people to flash their wealth or to show that the gains are real. Just because people are attracted to exotic cars, it doesn't mean that this is a Ponzi. People are allowed, in any economic system that is real, people would be allowed to cash out and spend their money foolishly. And that's what we saw in HEX too. That's what people do when they get rich. That's what happens when you create new millionaires, is they brag about it. As they should, right? People who have people who have delayed gratification through hundreds of X's in return. For each dollar that was put in, people could have taken out $100, but they waited until it was $1,000, some of them. And so that's what we see here, is that people bought fancy cars because that's what people do when they get rich. The McLaren on the left with the HEX 1 license plate is Richard's own car. The other photos are likely just stock images used for marketing. No, this green one here belonged to Overwatch, and he had 3 different license plates in Florida that were all vanity that he showed in a video, and so that's just false. I think that Overwatch, was a member of the community who may have sold, or he deleted his Twitter account. But again, that's what happens in a free market. That's what happens when anybody is allowed to participate in a system. You might get people participating who are more or less likable, who have different stories that appeal to different people. Overwatch claimed that he went from being homeless to being a billionaire, mostly through Ethereum and then through HEX. And so based on the timing of everything, it may have been that he sold HEX to buy that Lambo, or more likely he may have sold something else and just claimed to have bought HEX. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that anybody questioned that he had bought a large amount of HEX tokens and was rigorously trying to influence the influencers, basically, to get out there and do what they were doing, basically to pay it forward to different people. So again, that doesn't make it a scam. And just because Richard showed off his own car, that might have been Brent's car. Either way, that's not going to convince me that it's a scam. Just because you're attracting people who want to get rich doesn't make what you're doing a scam. Just because you're attracting people who want to get rich, it doesn't matter how you word that. It doesn't make it a scam just because you're making something that's making people rich. HEX made people rich, and now you have more people wanting to get rich. Where's the scam? Help me understand this. I don't think you can. I think you're just kind of scraping together all the FUD you can literally think of just to make an argument that in the end doesn't really make that much sense. Your money checks in but doesn't check out. Okay, it's totally optional whether you want to time lock your money or not. You could either choose to pay inflation and time lock your coins and get paid more coins in the future, or you could keep your coins and retain the right to be able to dump the price whenever everybody else is locking up their coins, and making it so that the supply is reduced in the here and now. It says by incentivizing HEX buyers to lock up their tokens for a number of years and heavily penalizing them if they unlock early, it removes selling pressure and reduces the float. This provides the opportunity for marketing efforts to have a more powerful effect, since with more buyers than sellers, the price will be pressured upwards. This in turn lures in additional buyers, catching the FOMO bug. Correct. That is how HEX was designed. Like luring in, yeah, again, you're using language that makes it sound shady, but if you invented something that was better for people than 99.9% of the other currencies in the world, where it actually gave people the tool to voluntarily time lock their coins. For me, I'm pretty sure I with the marketing of like paying your future self, right? Um, so that's a powerful use case. That's a utility that no other coin has. And so, and that, I'm speaking as an expert in psychology and understanding human behavior. That's my background. That's what I have my graduate degree in, right? And so I actually did my master's thesis on impulsivity and understanding how nicotine and tobacco is used as a self-medication for people being impulsive. And so we experimentally manipulated that. And, HEX is something that solves a problem that many people have in finance. And that's that they let their emotions get the best of them, and they buy high and they sell low, right? And so the staking mechanism is not here to like lure anybody in. In fact, most of us, when we talk about staking, identify that delaying gratification is an unpleasant activity, right? And so like it's not sexy to wait for something, okay? But HEX pays you to do that, and it pays with its own inflation that is always backed by other people who don't want to wait, who are suffering the inflation. And so it's a willing buyer and a willing seller and a willing staker that create this ecosystem that create the benefits that everybody is participating in. The person who's holding liquid, they're paying a price to be able to dump the price. And they're doing a great job of it, right? That gives other people a lower entry point. And just like any other free market, at times the price of HEX goes up greatly and then it goes down greatly. It's highly volatile. Like having a time locking feature, that's a good thing. you know, looks like my internet is here. I'm going over auditorily. So let me check in and make sure people aren't saying that they can't hear me or something. Oh, hey, what's up, Liberty? Change the word Ponzi to game. Play the best you can. Playing is voluntary. Exactly. That's an excellent point. And I know that you get it because you've been here just as long as I have, since the beginning. The goal is to leave with more USD, not more HEX. I don't know about that. I mean, like, each person has different goals, but like, you're not being guaranteed that you're going to leave with more USD because the HEX contract isn't able to guarantee that. What the HEX contract guarantees is that if you time lock your HEX, you'll get more HEX in return, as long as you don't end early, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's not a Ponzi because it doesn't promise returns in USD. HEX has built-in inflation, so it can always pay out what it owes to its users. There's never going to be a risk of insolvency. And just like Bitcoiners, they like stating that you can value your wealth in Bitcoin. In HEX, if you value your wealth in HEX, which not everybody does, most people don't do that. Even people who are heavily invested, right? Who are early adopters of this technology, like Yeah, I still value my wealth in dollars, but I don't pretend that the HEX contract is going to guarantee anything for me in the future. I just know that I'm playing a game that I want to participate in, right? And HEX is able to deliver on that. It's at 100% uptime. Not everything has. So the goal, of course, this author is erroneously claiming maybe, is to remove as many retail sellers as possible from the process so that the only people who are left to sell are the earliest investors and promoters who have large bags to dump on new entrants. Yeah, I don't know about that. Like, um, sure, people who have delayed gratification are going to get rewarded more, but like, just because somebody's new doesn't mean that we owe them anything, right? And so again, you're not making a whole lot of sense. Maybe to somebody who's naive and who hasn't thought deeply about all these points, maybe they would be persuaded by this article. But anybody who's thinking critically, they're not going to be dissuaded by this, I don't think, if you just think rationally about who deserves, Hex does what it says it's going to do. It pays you more, Hex, for locking longer. And in my opinion, this is something I've observed, is that it protects me from myself, in the sense that I would not have become a millionaire as quickly and held on to as many Hex coins if I didn't create a staking ladder, right? And so um, this is another real world utility that Hex creates, is uh, it protects people from impulsivity, and it allows you to dollar cost average your access to the coins over time so that you can dollar cost average sell out of Hex. And remember, whenever Hex pumped 100x or 10x, every time in the past where it did that, many times, people could have sold if they hold liquid, right? And so it's not always that the people who were the earliest always did the best, because they couldn't predict the future. It was risky to hold on to Hex tokens. And so when the price went up another 100x after it had already gone up 100x, those people, they had delayed gratification or they had time locked. And the new people coming into the system, people could have bought in even a year after Hex launched. They could have bought in for a third of a penny, and they could still be up a 10x now, even though we're suffering a 93% dip. But they could have sold the top if they had perfect market timing, which we know that that there were some indicators of a top in Hex. Like, people were balling out pretty hard. So if you paid attention to the community, like the guest we had on Tuesday's show, like he's somebody who just read the market correctly and like was doing trades at the top, but again, Hex is functioning as designed, and it's not designed as a Ponzi just because people are getting paid more to delay gratification, because people who are taking risk, holding through 90% dips, 80% dips, so on and so forth, like those people deserve, just like in any other free market, they deserve to be able to sell whenever they want for whatever the price is between a willing buyer and a willing seller and a willing staker. That's the equation. So just because just because you don't recognize what a free market looks like doesn't mean that this is a Ponzi, just because it's something that doesn't match up with everything else that exists. If Hex was the same as every other cryptocurrency, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. There are ways that it's different. If you don't understand why it's designed the way it is, if you listen to people who are making these these strange conclusions, then I think it's a huge disservice, if we're not dispelling that. Okay, this is something I liked. If I wanted the price to go down, this is a good thing to harp about, is like Hart's use of the word staking. Again, what I just described. If something's new and innovative, it's not going to look the same as everything else. So like, yeah, Richard did come up with a different type of staking than everything else that exists, because you're actually choosing to lock your own coins. and then being held to that promise, being penalized if you change your mind, like, and that's a feature, not a bug. That protects you from the counterparty risk of your future self. So every other, so when we're talking about the norm of like being able to unlock your coins at any time, like explain to me why that's valuable, because it's not valuable for me to protect myself from myself, right? And it's also, where's the yield really coming from? In HEX, the yield, it's coming from the adoption multiplied by, like the USD appreciation, multiplied by the scarce supply in the here and now, because 75% of people have locked up their coins that are not controlled by the origin address. So like, that's pretty brilliant. And nobody else is doing it. Doesn't make it a scam. It just makes it different and innovative, right? So it doesn't require staking hardware. Again, it's a hybrid system. It doesn't require you to research a data center. Okay, obviously. When you stake HEX, you aren't securing a network. Yeah, you are. You're securing the scarcity of the coins in the here and now. You are securing a network. You're not securing it in the same way that proof of waste does it, you know? But remember, saving money for the future, that is an economic activity. So saying that you aren't facilitating any underlying economic activity, like that sounds great. Sounds like we should all, sell our HEX immediately and abandon all hope. But again, you're just flat out wrong. Saving is an economic activity, and if you want to argue with me on that, then I'm not sure I can help you. Like, if you don't understand that saving, like being held accountable to the savings plan that you created as a staker, like even though you were incentivized to do so, like that's a feature, not a bug. Saving is an economic activity. You're facilitating that economic activity. Scarcity, making the coins more scarce because you're time locking them for any amount of time, like that's also an economic activity, right? It's like, so you are securing the network. So like, just because you're saying, whoever wrote this article, just because you're saying that you aren't securing a network and that it's not economic activity, doesn't make it true. You could say it all you want. It is economic activity, right? You're just agreeing to lock up your funds so that there won't be selling pressure. Correct. You can end every paragraph with something that is true and precede it with a bunch of stuff that isn't true. Like, try to persuade people, right? But that's why we're going through point by point. Just because you put together a bunch of true stuff with a bunch of false stuff doesn't make everything you say true. How does HEX make money? In short, it doesn't. False. HEX makes more HEX, and people trade HEX for goods and dollars that they cash out and trade for goods and services. So, it doesn't matter whether you think of HEX as a money or a collectible or something that's valuable, right? Like now we're just throwing around words. But at the end of the day, HEX holds value, and most people think of money as something that holds value. So like HEX and the dollar are not the same thing. They're not designed to be the same. They have subtle differences, but they would both, by most accounts, both be considered a type of money. Now, if we're asking what is money, there's hundreds of hours of podcasts trying to answer that question. It's something that's debated, right? But again, we could run around in circles using different linguistic gymnastics, or we could get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is that HEX, it's a type of cryptocurrency. Most people would consider that a type of money. Again, we could get nuanced, but HEX stores value. And it does it in a very volatile way from the USD perspective, but from the HEX perspective, it's a more stable form of money, if that's the unit of account, right? So when we talk about what is money, typically what's said is, and this is, you could look it up on any economics website, on Wikipedia, anywhere. It's like money has different functions. So money could be a unit of account, which means like you think about prices in dollar terms, if that's been your history, right? If that's been your monetary environment, then you make decisions knowing how much a hamburger is versus a pair of shoes. Like, what the difference is because you're using the dollar as the unit of account. Money is also a store of value, and it's also a medium of exchange. So medium of exchange means you could go sell it for something else. So it has what's called saleability, which means basically it's accepted. And most cryptocurrencies don't have a high degree of saleability, but they have convertibility into dollars. And so that, no money is perfect. Different monies have different trade-offs. Is HEX a form of money? Yes. Again, like using this word economic activity, like you don't define what you mean by economic activity, or maybe you're trying to in this example, but banks creating loans, earning fees from ATMs and services, then paying you part of the profit. Like, no, banks make money from creating inflation, right? Like from central banking, that sort of thing. So like the central banking model is to create a bunch of debts. The point of cryptocurrency is to be different than that. So again, we have to remember, just because something is different, because it doesn't match what has already existed, that's not a sign that something's a Ponzi necessarily. What it means is that, innovative things would also be in that category of different, right? So it says banks don't offer CDs as an act of magnanimity. They exist for the benefit of the bank, just like savings and checking accounts do. Okay, who cares? Like, now you're comparing and contrasting what banks do versus what HEX does. We know that they're different. Doesn't make HEX a scam because it's different. We have to assess it on its merits. Like, does it do what it says it's going to do? Well, it depends who you ask, but if you look at the code, it definitely does what it says it's going to do. And we don't see that with the Fed. The Fed doesn't give us an interest rate for all of time, but HEX does. Does that make the Fed a scam? Does that make the Fed a Ponzi? People could argue that it's so unreliable and that it changes so much, right? That it's decided by a centralized group of people. There are some things in HEX that are decided by what appears to be a centralized entity, but there are other things that are more certain than the legacy system. This is how real revenue is generated in the real world. Decentralized finance and centralized finance platforms like Celsius, oh, hey, that just collapsed. Okay, so those are real economic activities. That's a really good way to discredit yourself, because like what you're saying here is that you don't recommend them, but you're listing that as something that is obviously better than HEX. Well, that's wrong, because Celsius is insolvent as we speak. It can't pay out its debts because it was gambling. It was spending user deposits on mining equipment that lost money, and on leveraged trades about what the future price of Bitcoin and Ethereum would be, taking on tons of risk, right? Like, so you have the risk of the cryptocurrency itself and how it's trading against the dollar. And then you also have liquidation prices coming along, creating instability for the entire market. Are you saying that because HEX doesn't create instability for, the systemic banking system, that it's not a part of real banking? It's not an economic activity if it doesn't create systemic risk? Like, that's the funniest thing. That's the funniest thing ever, right? Like, that's what kids these days would call head ass. Like, that's backwards. Richard Hart and Hexa Controls love to name drop the Bank of England paper. I haven't ever heard them say that. Hex is just like the banking system. Yeah, well, when you get guerrilla marketing, you're going to have people who don't understand something explaining about it. Like, that's called decentralization and organic marketing. It's not called, that's not. So if you pointed out how that reasoning is incorrect, like, I think we just presented a bunch of false facts that I've never said anything about the Bank of England paper. I haven't heard anybody else say something, and I've watched every video of Richards and Hexa Controls. I don't know. Maybe you can comment if you know what that is, what they're talking about. Again, here, this is repeated over and over in this article. There is no underlying economic activity happening at all with HEX. That is false, because saving is an economic activity. And maybe in the modern world, where there is no free market, where the Fed is manipulating everything, where if cheap money rains down to all of the insiders in the banking system, and everybody else has to pay for it, right? Like, the US exports its inflation to every other country, like impoverishing the world compared to what technology could do. Like, technology makes things cheaper over time, but the Fed makes things more expensive over time, right? Like, that's criminal. It's not fair. Well, there you have it. If HEX is different than that, I'm okay with it being different than that. But you cannot say, you can't tell me that economic activity, that a saving doesn't count for that. Like, I don't care how backwards the world gets, you're not going to convince me that saving money for the future is not an economic activity, right? So, but the first time I read through this article, I was like, damn, they're tricking a lot of people here, just because they make it sound, so consistent, and they lace together all these facts. Some things are true and some things are false, and then the conclusions are false. Another reason that, like, the HEX interest pays for itself, other than you have a willing buyer and a willing seller and a willing staker all participating, and not everybody wins, and there's a give and take within the system, because the more people who time lock, the more scarce the coins get, the more that the price can pump. And then there's a trade-off where you don't always know that your time lock is going to come out at a time when the market is pumping instead of dumping. But that doesn't make it a scam. It just makes it a free market. Another thing that is to point out is that people could say that there's no, and they make the argument somewhere in this article that all inflation is bad. Well, modern monetary theory, as taught by the University of Chicago, which has the most Nobel laureates in finance, which somebody told me the other day was not an original category of the Nobel Prize. It was only added later. But these are the people who supposedly run the central banks and come up with the rationale, that the army of academics, the academic trolls, who try to convince everybody that inflation could be good, because if you get too many people saving, then there's not enough economic activity and you get booms and busts. Well, it's like with forest fires. When you try to prevent forest fires, and like, that just builds up to create bigger fires, right? So like people could say, and that's why controlled burns are, work sometimes, but at the end of the day, you're not going to stop the forest from like correcting itself. Like part of the purpose of a fire is to clear the brush so that a bigger fire can't come along later. So um, there are pros and cons to inflation, and both sides have good arguments. Like at the end of the day, it's a socially enforced network that people are automatically opted into, and in some ways like coerced to be a part of the legacy financial system, to like pay this hidden tax of inflation. But like the reason why inflation isn't robbing us worse is because every year that goes by, technology makes things cheaper. So Jeff, um, what's his face, talks about Jeff Booth talks about how you know uh, technology is a deflationary force that's exponentially increasing, and that's part of the way that the central bank in the past has been able to print an exponentially increasing money supply without the price of things going up exponentially. It's because technology is making things cheaper. So like one argument you could have for having inflation, although I don't like that, I don't think that this is the best way to run a society, but like the way that it runs now is that inflation is a mechanism to force people to invest so that the gains in technology are like backed by something, so that people continue competing to innovate, because you're going to be losing 3% or 5% or 10% of your funds if you're just saving and not investing. And so it's like, again, it's a two-way street. It's got pros and cons about whether inflation is good or bad. Most people don't like inflation, right? But it supposedly serves a purpose. Well, in HEX, the system of inflation is much more fair than any other economic system, because it's the people who are protecting the price, who are holding the price up at their own expense in some cases, that those are the people who are rewarded with the new coins. And the people who are holding liquid, they're volunteering to pay that inflation rate for the right to dump the price whenever it runs up. And that allows the system to balance itself. It allows the volatility to exist in a way that people can plan some things and not others, where people can speculate, right? So like, but my main point, when it comes back to HEX, that hasn't necessarily been said before, is that 3.69% inflation like kind of pays for itself because technology is making things cheaper over time. So like locking up your money does create value in a world where things are getting cheaper, right? So that's an important point. Like if the Fed wasn't printing so much money, things would be cheaper in the future. So people would be more incentivized to save, and then there would be less investment. And then at some point, technology might stop creating exponentially cheaper things, because everybody's trying to cash in on the future gains without putting anything into the system. So again, that's an argument for why a little bit of inflation might make sense in an economic system, and that's what HEX delivers, is a little bit about a little bit of inflation that in the end, it's like it's paying for itself in a way through technology improving and through the willing buyer, the willing seller, and the willing staker. Where's the certificate of deposit that pays 40% or even 20% in Ethereum or Bitcoin? It can't exist. That's right. HEX is new. HEX is innovative. Like if if the same thing could exist in Bitcoin, it might, right? But there were special launch conditions and there were special game theory that not everybody knew how it would all play out. Not everybody knew that the origin address tokens would never be sold up until now. Not everybody knew that there was ETH being recycled to, again, like to dilute people who would have sold at a 10x or a 100x. So like those were all design decisions that because it was the first time it was, any coin was ever launched like that. That's why some people think Bitcoin can't be replicated exactly how it was launched, because it was the first, right? So the whole scam could not work if the requirement was to lock up an asset and get paid interest in that asset for an asset that Richard didn't control and created out of thin air. Well, it's a smart contract, and you can create things out of thin air, right? Like trees and babies, like words, they all get created out of seemingly thin air. But like work, like people going to work and building things, like people coming up with ideas, there is preparation involved, but like people create things all the time that are valuable out of thin air, it's like a superhuman thing to do. Like it's normal for humans to create value out of thin air. Like, what do you like? I don't know. Inflation is never a good thing. That's what I was talking about. False. Like inflation can be a good thing. I just covered that. If inflation is being used as an incentive for people to stick to their savings plan and for people to create more scarcity in the here and now, because they know that as they dollar cost average out, it's better for them and for other participants in the system, like that's a use of inflation that I think is powerful, because it incentivizes delaying gratification. And again, like delaying gratification is a valuable thing when you live in a world where technology makes things cheaper, because it means that you can buy more later because of innovation. And people who save for the future are also more likely to make a better world in the future because they have something to live for. That's another area where HEX therapy comes into play. I just met another person last night at the Cubs game that said that HEX gave them something to live for when they were feeling suicidal. And while it's not prescribed for that, we're not going out and looking for suicidal people and telling them like, hey, like time lock your money in this super volatile thing. But still, it's an emergent property that people are using it as a way to have something to hope for in the future, right? That's the point I'm trying to make, is that people who have something to live for, they create a much more pleasant society compared to people who are just completely fearful about the future. That's no way to run a society, making everybody fearful, right? Maybe it is. I don't know. It's like, seems pretty popular these days. So all of this, like, is kind of like invalidated by this idea that like inflation is just a bad thing. Like, no, it depends how you use it. Inflation is a tool. And in the case of HEX, it's used in an innovative way to pay people to hold up the price, to create a value exchange. It's a form of virtual lending in a way. So there's nothing magical about the chosen inflation rate. Like I'll tell you what's magical about the chosen inflation rate. It's dynamic. So it's chosen by the system now that the contract is launched. Like the OA and regular users who are locked and who are liquid, right? They all create a balance. And again, I'm going to keep going back to this like point over and over and over again. Like willing buyer, willing seller, and willing staker. That's what makes a free market. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody gets a good deal. It just means that, like nobody is being coerced in a nefarious way. Like But so the thing that is magical about the inflation rate is that it it matches what Bitcoin's inflation rate was, and it is designed to create a balance between people holding liquid and paying the inflation rate and other people time locking and getting paid that inflation. Like, the inflation diluting people, that's part of the reason why there's an incentive for people to lock it up. That's a good thing, because then it creates scarcity and creates part of the value proposition. When you time lock your money and send it to your future self, again, that's right for some people. I interviewed somebody who on Tuesday, we interviewed Dan the shark, who like trades 90% of his coins. Like, he's done pretty well. So like, what works for Dan is not what works for the majority of people. About 80% of people who take a trading approach to investing lose. Maybe they don't lose all their money, but they lose most of it. And so again, like, there's a willing buyer and a willing seller and a willing staker who are all creating the value. If you didn't dilute people, there wouldn't be an incentive to lock up, and then you would have a completely different system. If you want a different system, go to a different system. Use a different cryptocurrency or a different form of money. But stop whining and complaining about this one. Stop calling it a scam. Stop calling it a Ponzi. If it's not right for you to lock up your coins, if it's not right for you to have this level of inflation rate, then like, you don't have to participate. This is a willing system where people come in. Like, I understand how it could be seen as not willing because I wouldn't have kept so many hex coins if I could have sold them all at the top. But I created I created a willing savings plan in the beginning, and I time locked my coins, and I created incentives for me to lock longer, and disincentives for me to end early. So like, that was willing at the time, and that's what matters, right? Like, that's what I was binding myself to. That's how I was keeping myself honest and sticking to my financial plan. If you don't like having to stick to a financial plan that you created, then hex, maybe it's not for you. Or maybe you want to hold liquid. Maybe you don't want to stomach any volatility. Well, then like, maybe cryptocurrency isn't for you. But that doesn't make it a scam. It doesn't make it a Ponzi. So again, like, you can say like so many true things back to back and then start saying untrue things, and it's not going to make the untrue things more true from my perspective. So again, like, saying in big letters that hex effectively is a Ponzi scheme, like, you just don't know what you're talking about, and I'll tell you why. So the SEC definition of a Ponzi, like, it is outdated. I'll agree with that. And it has been defined in this way, that it's an investment fraud that involves the payment of purported returns to existing investors from funds contributed by new investors. But like, that's how any market works, right? And that's why the SEC has the Howey test, which like further defines, creates like the different legs of the Howey test, so that people can understand, like, what it is. So then this is a little bit clever to say like, hex doesn't quite meet the exact legal definition. Okay, so like, you've just explained yourself right there. Like, you're right, it doesn't meet the exact legal definition. Like, and that's, the law isn't designed to have things that don't match up. Like, if it doesn't match, it doesn't match. Like, if it doesn't meet the definition of an exact legal situation, then like, what are you talking about? Like, what is the point you're trying to make? Just because it like pays out some people based on other people investing? Like, that's how every investment works. Like, you're giving a partial definition for a Ponzi scheme and saying hex kind of fits that. And you're saying See, it's a Ponzi because it kind of fits. That's not how the law works. That's not how defining things work, right? Like because a cat and dog both have fur, like doesn't make them the same thing. So if you draw the conclusion, like, if I say a cat has fur and a dog has fur, then I say like, see, cats and dogs are the same thing. Like you would sit there laughing your ass off. But if you said like cats have fur and dogs have fur, so Hex is a Ponzi, then like somehow everybody believes it, right? So like that's the difference here. That's the false analogy and like the poor definitions that are being applied. That's where Richard Hart and his followers stopped the discussion. I don't think so. We are continuing the discussion. No stopping here. See, not technically a Ponzi, therefore not a scam. Like, of course, something could be a more innovative scam, but like, let's think critically about this. And then everybody can decide and be a willing buyer, a willing staker, and a willing seller, like as much as they want, right? That's what a free market is. So like, you're not meeting the exact legal definition. So like, shut up. Like, let's take used cars for example. Yeah, you need a new buyer in order to cash out. So like, I invested in a car and now I want to sell that car because it's a free market, and because maybe I want to buy something else, and there's a coincidence of wants dilemma, which is an economics term that's like, maybe the person who's selling a computer like doesn't need a whole car at that moment, and so like it's better for me to convert my car into money, which is the most liquid you know medium of exchange, and then I can take those monetary units and I can buy the thing that I want. That's why money exists. It's like because the people who catch all the fish, like, you want those people to specialize and get better at catching fish and not spend all their time trying to figure out like how to buy a computer with fish that are going to go bad, like, because it's such an infrequent purchase compared to things other people need. So like the coincidence of wants dilemma, like that's part of what makes a society go beyond just a barter system, right? So like, so with the used car example, yeah, you need a new buyer, but that doesn't make every economic activity. It doesn't make every exchange that somebody does for money, it doesn't make all of that a Ponzi. Like, and if it does, then again, what are we even talking about? Like how like Hex is different in some ways and not others, but like that doesn't make Hex the same as everything else just because it's different in some ways and similar in other ways. Like, it's we're losing all meaning if we're not agreeing that it's okay for money to it's okay for people to come in a free market and pay one money to another, right? Like to pay dollars for Hex when you want to invest in the beginning, like, yeah, that's a free market. That's the definition of a sale or a trade. Like, and it's the same for used cars as it is for Hex, as it is for anything else, right? And so just because there's a new participant coming into the system does not make it a Ponzi. It doesn't matter how many words you write, like it's not going to change the fact that like converting units does not make something a Ponzi. That's why the SEC has more definitions than just new investors coming into something, paying old investors. Like, again, like for some people it's going to go over their head. For some people it's going to seem trite and silly, but at the end of the day, like, by constantly increasing the supply, there will always be negative price pressure on the value of what those tokens are worth. False. That's not how a free market works. Like, it's based on supply and demand. And like supply and demand goes up and down. That's what markets do. That's why we can't predict the future and all become billionaires like in the same moment, right? because there is no sure thing. We have to take risk, right? And so when you invest in something, you don't know if there's going to be higher demand in the future or not. Like, you can't control that because demand is based on people's free will. And like, even people themselves are poor predictors of what they're going to want in the future because the future is dynamic, right? So there's not always negative price pressure on the value of what the tokens are worth because we don't know how many participants will restake because they don't want to get diluted and because they want to keep earning more and more interest. If HEX is the best savings plan that you've ever participated in your life, which it is for me, and I know a lot of other people who feel the same way, like, why wouldn't we continue to make the coins more scarce? And then we don't have to sell as many tokens in order to meet our expenses, right? And so it's not a sure thing, but there is an argument that there is not always negative price pressure. And by the way, if that was true, then the chart would just go down as the supply increases, but that and as time passes. But that's not what has happened. The chart goes up and down and up and down and up and down like it's designed to. So um, the, that's been proven false. This statement that there will always be negative price pressure. And that's because so many people have chosen willingly to time lock. They've made the trade-off, right? So like, that's why the price goes up and down and not just down in USD terms, right? It's because it's a dynamic system and some people are choosing to continue to stake. And the price of a time lock, continues to go up in HEX terms, and that is how you create part of the balance in the system of the share system where longer pays better. Because the longer you lock, the cheaper rate you're going to get for the future compound interest, which that's a concept that not a lot of people can like show the math on how compound interest works, but everybody gets the idea that longer pays better. Otherwise, imagine if immense wealth could just be created by printing more tokens and distributing them. Everyone would be millionaires. That's false. Like, that's how the dollar works. You can just, like the central bankers can just print more money. And not everybody becomes millionaires because if everybody had the buying power of a millionaire today, then not as many people would work. And then there would be a disruption in society. And so like, it's better for people to become millionaires like on a longer time frame than just like overnight, right? And HEX, by the way, HEX doesn't make you rich overnight. Like, even people who got suddenly wealthy, such as myself, like in HEX terms, like in the amount of HEX that we own and like what the coins are trading at, but like that's not real value until I cash it out. And then I'm giving up one opportunity and somebody else is buying it willingly, right? And so like, there's no free lunch. Like, people took a huge amount of risk when they bought HEX. Like, that's why I didn't buy more HEX. It's because there was uncertainty. I wasn't 100% sure of it, and I'm still not 100% sure of it. But I'm like more sure than I have been in the past because I've seen certain factors play out, like the origin address acting in everybody's favor. So, like the 30 or 40% APY, like it's not such a good deal if you realize you have to lock that for 60.6 years to get that. Like, it suddenly becomes kind of a fair trade, in my opinion, which is why not everybody is time locking, which is good. You want to balance in the system. So like, again, there's going to be booms and busts in a free market, like, but what other way are you proposing, right? Like, HEX is a new and innovative experiment. The amount of new capital that needs to be brought in to absorb these new tokens is quite sizable, as we will see in a later section. Like, sure, that can be true. Like, and that's probably like the best criticism that I've seen. But again, you can do the math in HEX better than in any other market. And so, and like, it's hard to say what the dollar will be worth in 15 years. but it's cool that you can predict what HEX will be worth in HEX terms if you time lock it. Like, and if you don't like that, you know some things in HEX and you don't know other things, then you don't have to participate, right? It's people who are willingly participating that are the ones who stand to benefit or lose from speculating in HEX. A technical Ponzi scheme, again, you're going to say some things that are true and try to apply that to HEX. That's what we see over and over again in this article. A technical Ponzi scheme involves it eventually collapses because the earnings aren't really being generated. Well, that's false. Like, in terms of HEX, but not in terms of Ponzi's. Like, we just talked about like what the real use cases are. Delaying gratification, technology making things cheaper over time, like, and creating scarcity in the here and now to create the volatility that allows more long-term thinkers and actors to get paid more, and short-term thinkers, they're the ones paying the price. And new investors are like, they're taking a risk, whereas the old investors, they're also taking a risk if they sell or if they buy, like either way. Since the purported returns are paid with additional inflationary tokens, these tokens need to be absorbed by new investors. That's not true. They could be absorbed by the share rate increasing because you're restaking. That's something that I have done and plan to continue doing, is to rebuy my T-shares. And the price sometimes goes up on a T-share a lot each day and sometimes a little. But at the end of the day, that's one mechanism that can cause tokens to become more and more scarce in the here and now, which is all that matters to the supply and demand. So we don't know how the system will balance or collapse, but like what we do know is that there are things that are more predictable than any other market, and you should know what you're getting into in any type of investment. You should do your own research. You should take your own risk, right? In either case, the collapse can be delayed for years when investors wait to collect their purported earnings and reinvest them. Sound familiar? Like, oh, wow, just because somebody is reinvesting something, that makes it a scam? Really? No, that makes it a reinvestment. People who do well in life, if they find something good, they're more likely to reinvest in it. And if something treats you well and something works for you, if it's a useful tool to delay gratification and to store value, then of course you'd be more likely to reinvest. But again, you're not required to. It's not automatic. You have to do something in order to reinvest. Like, you have to be an active participant. So you have to keep making the choices that you want to make. Making choices that you want to make, like, does that sound familiar? That's called a free market. Like, reinvesting, does that sound familiar? That's something people do in investing. Like, just because there was a case where Bernie Madoff asked people to keep reinvesting and they did, that doesn't make HEX a scam. I'm sorry. Ridiculous. This is what makes HEX analogous to a Ponzi scheme. What? False conclusion. You're just saying words that you want to believe without backing them up. Only there's one additional step where both new and existing investors are transacting indirectly with each other through a token that is subject to supply and demand. Like, that's a clever way of like pasting together a few ideas, some of which are true and some of which are not. Like, any investing in a free market can include new investors and existing investors. Like, if there's a willing, fair exchange in that moment, then it's not a scam. Like, you can't base the fact that something is a scam because it has new people participating. That is economic activity. That's another thing where this article is just getting it wrong. It's like you're saying there's nothing about HEX that has economic activity involved. Saving is an economic activity. New people coming in and old people deciding whether they want to restake or sell or like do both, right? Like that sounds like economic activity to me because it involves human decision making in uncertain conditions, people being rewarded for taking risk, like speculating as to like what the future supply of something is going to be. Like that's technology, that's investing, like that's economic activity. You're not going to convince me that those things are fraudulent only because they have the word hex attached to them. And like in every other situation, those things are not making something a scam. The average lockup time is about 2 years, so there's a long delay. Well, the average time is now up to 6.6 years because people, as the system has continued, people have started to believe more and more. What's scammy about that? Money goes where it's treated best. What's scammy about that? Why is that a Ponzi? It's not. The opposite of a Ponzi. A Ponzi is where you're trying to trick people into getting rich quick, and then the founders running away with the money. That's what Celsius did. That's what Luna did. That's what the majority of cryptocurrencies do. But like in Hex, it hasn't happened, and so Hex is a get rich slow scheme. It involves waiting and patience, like uncertainty and risk, like, and people willingly pay with their dollars to buy Hex and with their Hex to buy dollars. Like, that doesn't make it a scam because there's an exchange of currency. Okay, and then this, like, again, it's like, this is true that like that Hex was sent to 173,000 addresses in large batches. But that doesn't mean that it was an effort to pretend that there are more investors than there really are. It was exploring a technology which allowed tokens to be airdropped to people. Cryptos are given out for free all the time that are valuable and brought on by the legacy financial system. One of the largest investment banks in the world, Andreessen Horowitz, they backed the Uniswap airdrop, where they sent tokens to thousands and thousands of addresses for free in large batches. Like, that wasn't to pretend that there are more investors, it was to distribute coins. So like, while it is true to say that like there's an inflated address count, like you're just doing a bad job of counting like which addresses got airdropped for free and which addresses chose to buy in with their own money. But like, just because you can't differentiate between those because you're too lazy to look at the chain, like to draw the right conclusions, doesn't mean that somebody's pretending, right? And just because not everybody who's a Hex streamer, who's a part of the organic, like getting the word out because they love this thing and it's been treating them well, they want other people to know that they could be treated well with their money and could save for the future in a way that rewards you instead of punishing you. The legacy system, it punishes you for saving money because of inflation. But in Hex, if you save money long enough, you're not getting punished by inflation. You will suffer the ups and downs of supply and demand, but you won't get diluted like you do in dollars with your purchasing power, except for the fact that you're one step removed from, buying things, but that's how any investment works, right? So, yeah, so at the end of the day, like, just because not all the YouTubers know that Hex was sent to this number of addresses, and because some people are out there saying that there are 400,000 addresses in Hex, like that's true. It's held by 400,000 addresses. But if Hex has achieved so much price performance and there's actually been less participation in the system, that's extremely bullish. That's a good thing. That means that Hex is working better than you imagine it is. If you're not understanding the difference between Hex that was given out for free and Hex that was bought into by people, like there is a big difference there. But nobody's pretending. Either they're misinformed, like the person who wrote this article, or um, like, or you can differentiate those different addresses fairly easily because obviously, they were able to separate them out by looking at the ones that are small amounts of 100 to 101 hex tokens. These are throwaway amounts, right? Like today, but if you gave somebody a penny's worth of Bitcoin back in the early days of Bitcoin, today that would be worth a lot. Like Bitcoin went from a penny all the way to $70,000. So time will tell, like what the value of hex will be versus the dollar. But like at the time, yes, those are throwaway amounts. Does not make hex a scam. Does not make everybody liars that are trying to trick people, right? Like it's all on the blockchain. It's a legitimate thing to send free tokens to people. Okay, centralization. Again, we've already talked a little bit about this. There are benefits and disadvantages to centralization. Like, because Hex is new and innovative, like there are some things that are going to contradict in the sense that Richard can't say that he controls these coins because that would make it more of a security. So which one do you want? Do you want to play by the laws and the rules that exist, not be a security? Like, does that make you more secure? Or do you want to have a degree of separation between like what the founder is saying and like the tokens that exist, right? Like that's a point, it's a very nuanced point that not everybody is going to appreciate and understand. But again, at the end of the day, like we could debate that whether centralization is a good thing or a bad thing. And then there's the actual performance. And the performance has been going really well. And so saying that centralization is good or bad is missing the nuance. Centralization is good if the centralized party is never selling the coins and they're using those coins to defend the system and to add more features that users can learn about, right? That's one of the reasons why we have so many hex streams, why the rabbit hole is so deep, is because there are really clever ways of hex deploying game theory that haven't been done before. Like that's what a free market does, is it allows people to experiment and people to vote with their own money. Like people have voted to say that hex is worth more than when it started out. That's the truth. So like, you can philosophize all day about whether centralization is good or bad, but at the end of the day, there are trade-offs and there is nuance. And so Hex, some of the tokens may be centralized, but the tokens that have ever sold, those are decentralized, right? Yeah, so we know that this is no surprise to people that Richard owns a lot of the coins, and I'm planning on getting better at teaching people how to do chain analysis so you can see for yourself. But not a single Hex token has ever been sold by the founder, and it's very rare that any project can say that. Why is the Hex interest rate 38 to 40%? Well, that's if you lock for 6.6 years. So if you ask the average person, like, are you willing to lock that long for that amount of money? Like, not everybody is, but some people are. So that's okay. Free market. Saying that there's an improved Hex without a rug pull risk, like, show me. Create it. Prove it. Stop saying words that you can't back up and that like I'm going through and just tearing this article to shreds. It's not deceptive. Like the blockchain, it's a free market, and like you're saying that there's a rug pull risk, but like who's more likely to sell coins? Someone who's a billionaire in Bitcoin and in Ethereum and USDC. They never need to sell down their own project and hurt its performance and hurt the people who put their hard-earned money into it. Like, tell me how that's more of a rug pull risk. Just because more tokens exist in somebody's hands who doesn't need to sell them, that's called game theory. And again, it's innovative. It hasn't been done before. So like, there's risk. Yes, there is risk. But if there was no risk, it's hard to imagine that there would be any return, because people would have already capitalized on all of the return. So like, the uncertainty about who controls all the coins, or like the fact that Richard controls most of them, we think that's a feature, not a bug. The fact that not everything is certain, and that technically we've seen those coins move for the sacrifice phases, for the big payday, those types of things. Like, so we know they can move, but that, again, that like helps qualify them as part of the market cap. At the end of the day, what people care about is the price, and the price is done well, and the founder hasn't sold, and there's game theory that's been uncovered and that's played out so far that makes me believe that the risk that this founder will sell these coins is low. If you don't reach the same conclusion, then you might not want to buy HEX. That's okay. Not everybody has to buy HEX. Yes, you are betting on the fact that Richard will not sell all of his coins and hurt his own project. And most founders would do that, but Richard is not like most founders. So just because HEX is different, now you're questioning things. Like, well, which one is it? Is it that HEX is different? Or is it that you're just in an attitude where you want to question everything? Like, and that's okay too. But that doesn't mean that you need to buy HEX. Not everybody needs to buy HEX. So again, like, market cap is something that's defined differently in different places. That's no surprise. It's a free market. It's a world where there's lots of information. Some of the information is nuanced. So like, how we determine what a market cap is, it's okay that there are different definitions. Like, it's okay that some places they define market cap as based on user controlled, and other places they count it based on the overall supply that exists, right? You can't have it both ways. Either there's a risk of rug pull, and like, HEX has a high market cap, or like HEX has a low market cap and it has more room to increase in people's minds, even though market cap, like, doesn't tell you anything about how high a coin can go. HEX is in the process of proving that. Like, the fact that really you have liquid coins being controlled by users, the fact that those are way more scarce than most of the statistics would suggest, that's a bullish thing. Like, who doesn't want their coins to be more scarce than people think they are? That's great. That's a feature, not a bug. It doesn't matter if Richard is good at debating or if he's good at whataboutism or whatever it is. Like, that doesn't make HEX a scam. There's plenty of independent people evaluating it, and people are allowed to debate things. Like, if you don't like how Richard is advertising the thing, then you don't have to buy it. Or if you don't like how Richard is advertising the thing and describing it, you could go out there and describe it in a different way. And then we can have an intellectual debate. But being very adept at manipulating semantics and introducing red herrings, like, I don't know. Most people who hear Richard speak think that he's a brilliant man. Like, I would like to see somebody like put in an example of what they mean when they're talking about whataboutism. Otherwise, you're just saying some things that are true in an article, but you're making false conclusions, because not everything you're saying is true, because you can't, we've picked apart so many areas of this article where it was saying false things and some true things, and then trying to convince you and persuade you that HEX is a scam when they have not presented a good argument that it is. False analogy to Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, so of course you're going to compare it. Like, it's not the same thing as Bitcoin, so it's not going to be the same. If it was the same, then there'd be no reason for HEX to exist. So like, this is just like, this is another criticism that you came up with, but you obviously didn't think very carefully about it. Like, Bitcoin was not engineered to have those features like HEX was. Duh, HEX is different. Like, next point, it's not saying anything. Bitcoin exists by itself. HEX depends on another cryptocurrency. No, Bitcoin does not exist by itself. It exists because there are miners securing the network, burning lots of electricity. And we've already seen Europe getting pretty close to banning that activity. So like, it's not that Bitcoin exists by itself. And sure, you could say that if they shut down all the data centers, then the difficulty will change and it could adapt. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin does rely on users, just like HEX relies on, the Ethereum network for security. Outsourcing that to the Ethereum network, like, that's a clever innovation. And having a hybrid proof of work and proof of stake system in HEX, that's an innovation. So depending on another cryptocurrency, or depending on something else having an externality, that just means, like, that's how everything is, right? Like, the air that we breathe, it depends on the atmosphere holding in all the oxygen, right? Like, that doesn't make breathing air a scam. Doesn't mean that, like, because air depends on the atmosphere, doesn't mean that it's bad somehow. Like, that's how everything is. Everything depends on something else. What does HEX actually do? It allows people to send money to their future self. Period. End of story. It allows people to speculate on the future supply and demand when people are incentivized to create more scarcity in the here and now, because they'll be rewarded with more later. Like, you could not like that concept because it's inflationary, but the world runs on inflation. Like, that's what works in the real world to some extent. I know people don't like it, but people also don't like waiting for things. People don't like saving for the future. That doesn't mean it's an unhealthy activity. People don't like moving around and exercising and eating healthy and stuff. So like, what's the purpose of doing all those things? Things that people don't like? It's because there's pros and cons to everything. It's because, like, the world is nuanced. But it's not too hard to understand in this case what HEX's purpose is. And if you were able to write all of this and you really don't understand what the purpose is, then you were probably pretty biased in the beginning. Or you really don't like inflation, which is how the world works. Or you don't like people being free to, like, speculate on something that, like, it has a good enough use case. Delaying gratification, creating a savings plan that you stick to, or speculating on a price when the system is being balanced out by other people who are doing that, by people paying inflation to be able to sell the price down if they want to, and they're paying that inflation to people who are holding up the price. Like, that's an innovative economic activity on the blockchain. So like, all of these arguments, they don't really hold up very well. But if I was just in reading mode and I wasn't in critical thinking mode, I probably would have taken this article and been really upset. Or maybe that's what it was designed to do, was to shake out the weak hands and to get people who became suddenly wealthy by from HEX be fearful when the price is already dipping. And that's not a bad thing. If people want to sell, then then the system will balance, right? Like, there's nothing guaranteed in the USD price of HEX. And you'll hear that from a lot of people, I think. See, saying that it's gone up so much as a function of marketing and manipulation, I don't understand that. It seems pretty willing what people have been doing. It doesn't seem manipulated. Making this as part of the conclusion, I think it's really bad logic, because you haven't demonstrated where the market has been manipulated. You identified areas where it's complex, but that doesn't mean that it's manipulation. If somebody doesn't know how the internet works, how all the zeros and ones like go through these different protocols, like TCP IP ports, right? Like the internet runs on that shit. Like, just because somebody doesn't understand it doesn't mean they're being manipulated. It just means that they don't understand something that's complex because nobody's taught them about it yet. Like, that doesn't mean that it's inherently bad. Like, marketing something is also not illegal, but like the marketing that is done in HEX, it's not paid for. It's not paying a middleman. I understand that's a different way to do things. That doesn't make it bad. It just makes it different. There are lots of people who have contributed minimal amounts of their own capital but are showing a life-changing account balance. And counting off the days until their lockup periods ends so they can sell. There are a lot of people. Who? What are your sources? What are, like, you're just making things up now. You don't know that there are a lot of people waiting to sell. Maybe there are. That's okay. Like, that's a risk, right? That's part of the mathematics and the calculus that you have to do if you want to try to predict the future. But you can't predict what people are going to do in the future necessarily any better than they can. I don't know that I'm going to rebuy my T-shares until I click the button, right? But so far I've done it, right? So give some sources here. If you really want to say there's a lot of people, like, I don't know that, and I don't know how they could know that. They can't. That's a lie. It's false. You don't know what people are going to do in the future. What has somebody signaled on the blockchain that they're going to sell all their coins? Right? Like, at least we could see in HEX, because it's so transparent, we could see what different users' behavior is. We could infer whether they're more or less likely to sell based on their own past behavior. But it's the uncertainty about the future that characterizes any investment and any return. They can sell to someone else and realize that massive gain. That's what the point of investing is. That's what the point of delaying gratification is. They could have sold lower, but they waited. They created more value by letting other people sell and then not knowing whether there would be more demand in the future. These people who are not going to tell you to hold off on buying it. These are the people who are not going to tell you to hold off on buying it. It's best not to ask the ones who benefit from your ignorance whether you should buy. Like, yeah, of course people are going to be incentivized to like promote the thing that they're selling if they've made gains, but no one person is going to convince everybody. And if they do, that's a free market. Like, that's free speech. That's like that's part of the risk that you're participating in any market, right? Like, the point here is that HEX is different, and so it presents a unique opportunity. There's no guarantee that it's going to do better than stocks, but like, it's a different investment. That doesn't make it a Ponzi. It's not. The only rebuttal from HEX shillers about why HEX isn't a scam is because our account balances have gone up since we bought in. Go back to the first HEX conference. I was shilling that shit and the price had gone down massively. Like, I shilled Bitcoin when the price went down massively. Like, we're shilling because we believe in the economic rules of the system because we believe in the game theory. Like, and there is somewhat of a paradox that, like, why would I tell other people if there's such a good opportunity? Why wouldn't I want more of that opportunity for myself? But at the end of the day, I could have both: the social capital of getting, bringing awareness to people about something that they could do well in. Like, if I'm giving my testimony that my money has been treated well in HEX, getting in on was, I knew that there's volatility in crypto. That's why I invested in it. It's like, it's okay. It's okay for me to pump my own bags. If you believe in something, why wouldn't you speak about it? Like, that doesn't make it a scam just because people are promoting something that has done well for them. It's called paying it forward. Like, there are also costs of being a public figure. Like, it's draining emotionally. People talk shit on the internet. They, like, say mean things, and uh, you know people are psychologically attacking others on the internet often. Like, I'm not getting paid more to do this necessarily than somebody who's just staking in the shadows. And so, like, there is a cost to this, but it's also fulfilling to be able to be an expert on something and to teach others and to create a social following and that sort of thing. Especially also because I get to talk about promoting mental health. I often talk about omega-369 and suicide prevention and self-improvement. That's what we talked about last week. The episode of Hex Therapy last week was really good because we were talking about checking in with yourself, having positive self-talk. Like, and that's the thing. The friendships that have been created in Hex and the community, like the self-help things that people have learned, that is part of the basis. Like, that's how Richard developed a following in the first place, of people that would trust him despite all the FUD and despite, like, all the competition amongst cryptos to, like, tell you that the other ones are all bad and theirs is all good. Like, so even if Hex goes to zero, some people have gotten things out of it other than just money. They've gotten self-improvement, they've gotten suicide prevention, they've gotten mental health, they've gotten a social network of people that that they've connected with. And at the end of the day, like, that's another thing that I think is worth mentioning, is that it's not all about money. And the people who are playing the game of Hex, like, they're playing willingly. So I rest my case. Hex is not a scam. Oh, okay. Well, I was wrong. The person who wrote this did say who they are, at least their first name, and showed their face. So, okay. So he became a self-made millionaire, but it's not okay for anybody else to, and I guess that's his main point there. He wants to sell you portfolio pies and sell high through automated rebalancing and reinvesting the cash flow from dividends or direct deposits, all commission free. Like, what the hell? Earn up to $1,000 in free stock through this link. Oh my God. So amazing. Why would you do that? Why would you invest with somebody who's got everything so wrong? Such a liar and a scammer. And at the end of the day, that's what this guy's doing, is he's scamming people out of the opportunity to pay their future self. It's participating in something that's different than the rest of finance. So hope you feel good about yourself, man. Let's go to the comments. Hey, hit the like and subscribe button if you found this useful. I've been traveling, and I'm working to create more events for the Hex community. Some pretty big stuff here. So, but sure enough, I stuck to my plan of streaming. This is the 80th week in a row where I've been streaming on Thursdays, so I'm pretty proud of that. Hit the like and subscribe button if that's useful to you. It was really great seeing people in Chicago yesterday, and then I flew out here to Texas, so that's been exciting. I got to meet Hexander last night, so that was a huge highlight. A long time commenter. Happy Pineapple. Thanks for taking your time to share your knowledge and wisdom with us this evening. Hex therapy is great. Yeah, I'm glad it's useful. Melatonin is saying the price of Hex is 3.2 cents at the moment. KS, thank you, Maddie. My pleasure. Dante, what's up, Hex fam? Optimal Timeline, hey, Maddie. Steaknomics, thank you, Maddie. This is great. Biffines says, Hex better not be a scam. Hilarious. David Morales, bad data in, bad data out. Correct. Brissology, can I please speak with the manager of Hex? Wow, you guys are killing it tonight. Dante, Hex is the real cryptocurrency out there. No middlemen who can shut the project down. Very true. Biffines, I was going to be content with asking to speak with Brissology on this, but Briss needs to talk to a manager. Let's see. Hit the like button or you'll be red flagged as a FUDster. Very good incentive there. Biffines, seems like 80% of the market is skittish on crypto still. Humans are the best at denying the truth when they see it. What's up, Frank? Arrived. Welcome. Love all the free tokens I received. Yeah. Great onboarding material. I hope so. Whoever wrote this made up their mind beforehand and is just trying to do confirmation bias. I agree. Hot babes are always at car shows giving out free Red Bull. Does that mean that RH has no... If the internet keeps cutting out, maybe I'll stop my video for a second. There we go. Just to make sure we're not losing too much of the stream. Hey, hi, Maddie. Normally a bit late for me, but push later today because of you and Wendy's for tennies. Very happy. Well, I'm glad you stuck around for the stream. The only asset in the world with a chart of future market supply. That's right. Yeah, and like, you know, the majority of people watch this on the replay. We've been getting like 3,000 views, even in a bear market. It's all-time highs almost, like on, you know, a moving average is higher than normal for Hex therapy, which means, you know, people are still tuning in. People are still interested in learning and getting value out of the show, which is incredible. Let's see. So, and then, you know, the Tuesday show is also posting super enviable numbers, like, you know, and it's because of the consistency and the quality of the people speaking. I think that is why I even watch the replays and participate. Ralph Afghanistan, what's going on? Completion fails. How you doing? Everyone forgets the best narrative. It works. That's right. It works if you work it. People saying hi to each other in the chat. ALLin Hackett, I have arrived. Welcome. Crypto Winter Bull. It won't let me super chat you, Maddie. That's weird. Thanks for thinking of it. If there's a word that I've blocked and you're putting it in the super chat, that could be a reason why it gets rejected. There could be other reasons as well, such as like which country you're donating through and that sort of thing. Great evening, Maddie. What's up, Peppy? Just asked Shrekelly about RH and Hex. He said he's not aware. Anyone else want to bomb his chat? Perhaps. Brissology. I don't know who that person is. You want Richard and him to be friends. It's a Ponzi because no business activity. Money comes from onboarding. No business activity. Okay, so anything that's digital is not having business activity. That doesn't make sense. You know, like business activity is wasteful. Most businesses lose money. That's a negative externality. People have tried that in crypto and it didn't work out. It was always better to buy and hold. Um, what's the business activity of the U.S. dollar? Like, it's just printing dollars, collecting taxes, but like that's not creating goods and services. It's like a negative externality on goods and services. But sometimes that's needed, sometimes it's not. In HEX, like, just because we're not selling physical goods doesn't mean that the accounting system is useless. The accounting system is useful because people are delaying gratification, and that's what a store of value is. It's like HEX is a better store of value than Bitcoin on a long enough time frame, in my opinion, based on the game theory. They would be the perfect crypto heels if they combined doing an AMA on YouTube. Let's see here. It's not a Ponzi because it doesn't promise returns in USD. HEX has built-in inflation, so it can always pay out what it owes to users, and it's voluntary. People are choosing to buy the coins and holding them liquid, like, because they're speculating, because they're investing, because they find it useful. My goal is to leave with more USD, not more HEX. Well, it's great that you have that goal, but just because you have that goal does not mean that somebody's promising you something that isn't possible. Like, you're the one who makes your own investment decisions. Like, just because you have that goal doesn't mean that like that's what HEX is designed to do. HEX is not designed for you, Mark Carniato, to leave with more USD. It's not guaranteeing you that. If it did guarantee you that, then it would be way better than it currently is. But HEX is not way better than it currently is. It's just what it is. And so just because you have a certain goal, you're speculating, you're taking on risk. That's why you stand to benefit or lose. It's not a sure thing. It's a get rich slow scheme. It's a system of balancing out inflation with store of value in a cryptocurrency. Like, what are you not getting? I think people just don't want to wait. That's why they get all upset about HEX, because the idea of waiting is so horrible to them. Like, those are impatient people who would probably benefit from HEX the most, but they won't choose to do it because it's a free market. Tetherball is a good scam. Haven't heard of it. I heard a few weeks ago that someone staked 86 million for Quattro Cinco, and I think the math was like 500 billion worth of HEX at the end of that. What are your thoughts? You think someone could cash that out? We have no idea what it would be in the future. But like, it's cool that you could see that and when that stake is ending, and you could end yours earlier if you wanted, or you could end some earlier and some later. But it's operating as designed, and like, we don't know that it's $500 billion worth of HEX. Like, it depends on the people who are participating in between now and then. Like, it depends how people choose to balance out the system. Somebody who's staking that much, I don't think they would need to cash out 500 billion all at once, and they wouldn't be able to, most likely. So like, it's these big billion-dollar stakes, they are something that like you should pay attention to. Like, it should worry you a little bit. Like, that's okay. It's okay to like not be 100% confident in something that you're investing in, because like nothing in the world is 100%. Not even death and taxes. Like, I just gave $5,000, in the past couple of months to longevity research. And I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to die, and I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to live forever. Like, it's somewhere in between. So like, It's up to us, right? Like it's up to whoever buys HEX and holds on to it. It's up to us, like what the price is going to be, and the people who are demanding it. People who are willing buyers and willing sellers. Those are the people who will decide the price. We can't know what their actions are going to be unless they time lock their money, and then we will have more certainty than other markets. I'm glad that you're paying attention to that, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking. HEX will be worth more than today if we onboard 1 million new users. The goal is to lock up capital and shave off interest as perpetual income. But first, you need to add the capital. Yeah, there's tons of adoption left to occur. Like, even after mass adoption, if it comes, like, even after that, there's still benefit in saving for the future. Even if you save some money for the future and the investment goes down, that's still useful for some people. It's not as useful as the price going up, but we know that the price is likely to continue to be volatile. If you don't like that, get out. But that's not financial advice. And you don't have to get out or get in. And you shouldn't base it off of what I'm saying. You should do your own research, make your own financial decisions. Knowing how heavy guys are in HEX incentives are to quantify the value in HEX over the dollar, especially in the bear market. Exactly. Hang in there, Hexicans. DB Cooper, good to see you there. ZZ, good day, Hexicans. Biffines, isn't it much more efficient if you can store investment capital in a secure, audited vehicle that pays inflation honestly without middlemen? It just seems really efficient. No in or out trading crap. Exactly. Fawn Owl. Making your own choices was the gift of crypto. This comes with risks and responsibilities. I'd rather choose to lock my coins than to have them locked without my control, as in the case of Celsius. Excellent point. Anyone that thinks HEX is a scam has to believe that. Doge, SHIB, etc. are scams too. That's a great point. I was thinking about that earlier today and was planning on making that point, and I forgot. So thank you, Liberty. Yeah, what are the economic activities of Doge and SHIB? Speculation. That's an economic activity. Just because it doesn't have a business behind it, because it doesn't have business activities, does not mean that it doesn't have economic activities. And not everything needs to be a business. Businesses are great. That's not the only kind of economic activity that exists. Saving money for the future is not a business activity. It's an economic activity, and it's okay. It's okay to have both. Very good point. Was afraid of that before launch. Unfortunately, to be honest, the HEX FUD has made me more money than HEX marketing. Consistency is king. I learned this before HEX. Preparation, opportunity. Call me lucky. Why stop now? Well, Bitfinesse is one of the hardest working Hexicans out there. Got to take Fawn Owl's side on this. USD says, HEX is a scam. Pot says, hey Kettle, you are black. Saving and spending are both economic activities. Facts. Biffines, I agree, but not that interesting for people outside the US. Yeah, people outside the US don't like to save because they always get diluted by the Fed printing dollars. So people outside of the US have had a bad experience with saving because their inflation is compound between the US inflation, which is the world reserve currency, and the inflation of their own monetary regime. So, of course, that's a limitation of HEX, is that not everybody in the world is primed to even see any value in saving at all. If the price of inflation is so high in other countries that the price of everything in the future is going to be more expensive, why wouldn't you spend your money now and store your value in other commodities and goods that have less depreciation in your buying power than the dollar? Some people have been buying cars and houses and stuff to preserve their value. But other people have invested. Get pissed that the dollar is a scam. HEX doesn't make USD. True. Mint your own coins by staking. Explaining to a complete novice that the US dollar is a pump and dump is pretty easy. There's tons of supportive data out and shared opinions of industry leaders. Seeing the dollar as a scam makes it easy. Yeah, I think some people, they're like prepared for that message, and other people, they don't want to hear that like the thing that they're used to is a scam, because a lot of people, they have savings, so it's not a happy story to say that the dollar is a scam. So like there's both types of people out there. I would love to create a tool that like allows people to choose their own like use case out of like a list of things. Like, what do you believe? And then like, here's the good and the bad of HEX based on that. Because it's hard to pitch to people if you don't individualize it. Staker class are the elite. People don't necessarily compete with each other in socialist countries. They are dumber. The Fed creates dollars, inflation assets, then takes it back in the form of taxes. Please explain that it's not interesting to people outside of the US. Okay, so I may have addressed that somewhat. I mint coins to swap to USDC to fiat to pay rent each month and mint my own fiat easily with HEX yield. You're doing gymnastics. Very simple. HEX doesn't make money. Be honest. Okay, well, we have somebody who is failing to learn, failing to be open-minded. Good, best of luck to you in life. Maddie, this is excellent. You are very, very talented and polished. Thank you, Grounded in HEX. I appreciate it. Be honest. Bye-bye. Oh, somebody already banned you? That's funny. I'm still catching up with the chat. You must have said something that my mods would have known that I would have banned you when I got to it. Give me liberty or give me HEX. And like, I don't ban people for disagreeing with me, but it's like, you have to be willing to learn at least, or willing to like have a discussion. And that's the cool thing about like broadcasting to 3,000 people a week. It's like, I get to choose whether you get to comment in this class or not. And it's totally up to me. Like, if you don't like it, too bad. I'm doing this, I'm educating people for free. I don't want to have to hear all of your vile spew of words. Like, if it's not benefiting me, then like I will mute you. Plain and simple. This is not a town square. This is something I'm volunteering to do. I don't know what to tell you, says Bristology. HEX has been out for 2.5 years and it's working perfectly. And it's made a lot of millionaires so far. So I think you need to admit that you're wrong. Happy Pineapple. New innovations are perceived unreal and then they become a reality. Bristology. And learn why your worldview doesn't fit reality. Boom. The end user of HEX makes the money. Yeah. It's trading. You sell HEX. It's like any other investment, like the stock market. Like stocks don't make money. You trade them for money. And like the majority of companies on the S&P 500 are like unprofitable zombie corporations that are propped up. So if your argument that like HEX sucks as an investment is that it's that it doesn't make money, however you're defining that, like, which you never stated, but like, what are the alternatives? HEX is the only crypto that isn't a scam. You know, there was another one that I found once that wasn't a scam. It's called a Mimble coin. I ended up selling because I don't think it has a bright future, but The founder surprised everybody by giving away all of the tokens that they had set aside for themselves, which was an incredible act of altruism. It's like very interesting game theory to surprise everybody with free money. That would not have been predicted easily by game theory, but it was a good incentive for the participants. The reason I think Mimblewimble coin didn't succeed is because there weren't enough people who were willing to do marketing for free about it, because it was a privacy-centric coin, and so it attracted people who wanted their privacy and did not want to be public figures. Hex users are happy, but Mark is mad at Hex because he thinks it shouldn't be working like it currently is. Timothy Benjamin is coming up for lunch. Okay, yeah, you guys are in California, aren't you? You got to meet John Wick? Oh, I'm so jealous. That's great. I really like John Wick. If people haven't seen the recent interview with John Wick and Corripto Stylist, the K, check it out. She has her own channel, and it's a very, very good interview. I really enjoyed it. John does an outstanding job of explaining HEX to people. And he's coming from the legacy financial system as an investment advisor. He's not giving people financial advice on the internet, but he is well versed in how to explain risk and the pros and cons of things. If you were, ooh, I like this Bristology. If you were correct, Mark, everyone in the chat would be upset just like you, but we aren't. Bifinesse, European are not competing on a virtuous level. For example, fat shaming, disgusting for anyone who's sensible enough to look at what is happening in the US. He can believe whatever he wants, could have made some life-changing wealth, or even just a few bucks. Has he been burned before? Point to where the scammer touched you on the chart. I don't understand people like Mark. I don't like XRP, but I don't invade XRP YouTube videos and tell them why they are wrong for using the banker's coin. Ha ha ha. Mark, why do you do this to yourself? Mark, take throwaway / Vegas money and see what happens. If you land on red, be pissed for an hour and get over it. But if black comes up, exclamation mark. Bifinesse, I do that Bristology not as often or much anymore. I'm too busy, but I do that and I like it. Sorry, guy, never going to stop doing that. I mean, that's half the fun of crypto. Liberty says, then again, Vegas is a scam. Very true. The odds are not in your favor. Bristology, please start the channel. I don't admit I'm wrong. It has made millionaires, and I can't see how there can't be an equal number of losers. Because that's what a store of value in an investment is. It's like, not everybody needs to cash out at the same time. Is it possible that everyone can win? No, because people wreck themselves, which is the point of HEX, is to stop wrecking yourself by like dollar cost averaging out of something, then like rebuying your T-shares. It's like a pretty simple plan. If you've never sent money to your future self, try it with $50 if that's something you could spare. Like, go to my website. Like, my front end is tshare.app. You can do it all from your phone or computer or whatever. Like, you could experience it. You could experience sending money to your future self, time locking it, and then watching the interest pay out every day. Like, they could be cashed out at the end for whatever HEX is worth in the end. But like, until you've tried it, it's like, and that's what I think the person who wrote this article, I'm not sure that they've actually tried staking HEX. Like, there was a guy who did hours and hours of interviews with Richard and never even tried staking HEX. Like,
I don't understand how somebody could do that. Somebody could like learn so much about something and not even try it. Some poker players read books and practice all the time. It's not fair that they should be able to take other people's money. Yeah, well, that's a good point. Correct. Inflation is a tool. Same reason people do not buy coffee with volatile Bitcoin. Too much risk of impermanent loss. What's up, Bob? Bristology. With all cryptos, those who get in later than sooner have to wait longer usually. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a scarce digital asset that will grow faster than the US inflation. Depends what the inflation is. We don't know that. It won't change anytime soon. The ocean took a good amount of love out of Europe. Okay, I'm not understanding that side conversation. What did it do, Maddie? What's up, Black Label Expat? Saving money plus gaining yield. Yeah, no activity. That's sarcastic. Price may go up and down, but it's still a store of value. And HEX incentivizes people to lock up their capital for yield. HEX is provably fair. The US dollar is not. That is true. Unimax. So it's not out of thin air, is what you're saying. Okay, well, yeah, we could split hairs and say nothing comes out of thin air, right? Because even ideas come out of your brainwave activity. So I'm not sure that that's helpful, but what we're basically saying with that is that you don't have to have a business activity where you're on average losing money to have a crypto be valuable. That's the point. Bitfinesse. People have forgotten that long-term savers are supposed to do better than just about everybody financially. Now, no one knows what saving is. Why would you purposefully not use your money for 10 years? Excellent, excellent comment, Bitfinesse. Excellent comment. We have to understand the context of people's psychology and their monetary environment, their experiences. Like, people aren't choosing to be dumb about saving. People are living in a world where the rules are hurting savers. And HEX changes that. Not a scam. Hit the like, pretty please. Great, Maddie, but we'll get down to a tenth of a penny again with HEX. You bought at 40 cents, but leave to get some HEX when all the early guys got in. Yeah, I don't know. Like, user performance will vary. Not everybody makes money off HEX. Some people try to trade in and out and don't do well. Other people trade in and out and do well. If you don't like to stick to a financial plan that you created, yeah, believe it or not everybody likes to stick to the plan that they created. I don't like to stick to the plan I created sometimes because I'm a dynamic person. When I see the price go up to 50 cents and then it drops down to 3 or 4 cents, like, yeah, do I wish I could have sold my entire bag at the top? Yeah, but I wouldn't have known that that was the top. And I am happy with what I chose. Sometimes that's okay. It's okay for me to have good days and bad days. Time lacked longer in the past year. Thankfully, I originally did my day one first stakes. Nice. Straw man fallacy. Charles Ponzi promised returns. HEX doesn't promise new investors. That's the difference. Excellent comment, Bristology. Well put. I am here for my therapy. What's up, Jerry? Good to see you. Mark says, no business activity. That's the difference. Okay. Yeah. No business activity. I see that as a positive. That means you don't have to pay people. It's not a negative externality, which is a good thing. Not everything has to be a business. What about that don't you understand? Hex just shows you the mechanics. And if everyone jumps on board, it will work as a store of value that generates yield. No promises made. Exactly. I'm 44. We all share some kind of history, but not everything. And people outside crypto don't necessarily look at the main culture of money from the same historical background. Nothing to worry undo. The crypto scene missed this lesson. Crypto to crypto is okay. Dollar to dollar is okay. But physical to digital is where all the risk is for now. Don't add unnecessary risk where it's not needed. Store of value, not a business. What's up, Tintop? Biffness. Mark, the activity that is taking place is happening inside the locked smart contract. It's all about what the contract does. The user decides to run it or not run it. Yeah. And I would call that, Biffness, I would call that economic activity and not business activity. And that's okay. Now, other people, they might have different definitions than I do of those terms. But for me, HEX, it incentivizes saving. And, you guys are giving like good terms and good explanations of all this stuff, putting it into different phrasing than I am. And it's all seeming to line up here. But yeah, it's, yeah, I'm glad we're having this discussion. How far behind am I? Wow. Ooh, I love this. People bring up the other tokens when they run out of things to say bad about HEX. So you like that PLSX is deflationary, and you also like how HEX is inflationary. Correct. Yes, that is correct. Exactly. Because not everything has to be exactly the same. It's okay to have different things. Like HEX shares are deflationary. HEX is inflationary. There's a reason it's designed that way. There's a reason Pulse X is designed being only deflationary. Like, it's okay. It's okay to not like come out with the same version of HEX and have all the same things. Like, that would be not as useful. Like, even though we are getting a copy of HEX, it's like on its own network. I think that addresses some of the other issues that the article brought up, like of relying on Ethereum. But yes, yes, yes. ZZ asks, what happens to HEX staking pool when it becomes more scarce, say 20 years time, and less incentivizes people to stake as ROI will become less? Will HEX just be a store of value and people just trade it? We're not sure what's going to happen that far out. But luckily, like, or maybe depending on how you define luck, like you can't make a stake for 20 years. So it's, if you're asking me to speculate 20 years from now, it's kind of hard it's hard enough for me to speculate on a year from now. Like if we get adoption, if we get mass adoption, like you're not going to worry about the ROI from staking because you're getting so much ROI from like scarcity, from supply and demand. So like that's how the system balances itself out one way or another. We don't know that HEX is designed perfectly. We just know that it's designed well enough that it's something that we invested in and something that people continue to invest in. It's like, it's good enough. I used to be a maxi on Austrian economics, but then I learned that inflation isn't bad as long as it goes to people, the people who are currently holding the money, like how HEX does it. That is a phenomenal point. Thank you, Brissology. I too had the same revelation. Austrian economics, like, it talks a good game because people hate inflation. But like, it exactly what you said. It does matter like who the inflation is paid to, like who pays for the inflation. In the dollar, it's not such a good deal for everybody. Or is it? Because really you're incentivizing people to invest. Like, so I could see the use case for inflation, even though it's painful. Not everything that feels good, like, is good for you, and not everything that feels bad is bad for you. When the US dollar inflates, it doesn't go to the citizens, it goes to the banks. Then they loan it to us. Yeah, but also they print money for all kinds of things, and that isn't always a good use of money. The inflation obviously makes HEX harder to appreciate. It depends. If you're somebody who's trying to get rich quick and you're trying to sell it and you wish that it would become more scarce, but you're not doing anything to make it more scarce, then you don't deserve the reward. And then inflation is going to be a pain in your ass. But like, if you're using HEX in a different way, if you're trying to make it a speculative store of value and delay gratification, create like a staking ladder and that sort of thing, then the inflation is going to pay you. It's going to concentrate your wealth instead of dilute it. What's up, Hex Live? Good to see you. Get them. Biffness found if you were saying that bad actors had been more profitable than marketing, to be honest, I think that can't be the goal. One must understand why, because it's in future interest. Hex inflation is overrated. Lots of inflation doesn't come to fruition for years from now. On top of that, when people get penalties, the OA absorbs 50%, never to be sold. Yeah, the effective inflation is probably like negative in Hex, like because of people relocking their coins and people emergency end staking and the OA like having so many coins and interest not being paid until the end of a stake, that sort of thing. So like, it might be 1% actualized without accounting for people like restaking and stuff, but there's lots of ways that it's better than it appears at first, even, which 3.69 isn't too bad per year. The only situation where Hex fails is a full-blown apocalypse. Needless to say, we would all have bigger problems. HexDailyStats.com. Check out all the penalties. I go there every day. Half of it goes into a black hole. The low prices have currently brought crazy returns. Sell Hex, aka Gammon, but I'm a special case. I've only ever bought crypto. I've never sold it. Bitfinesse, you're the real hodler of last resort. Never sell cartel. I still hold out that this could all be a dream. Other things have also taken place that would confirm that in my mind. I'm prepared to accept, however, the reality presents itself. Good. You are adequately judging your risk and not assuming that everything's going to work out in the best possible way. Also, the OA has staked HEX. The OA is not going to sell that HEX, effectively taking it off the market, lowering the inflation even more. That's true, I think. If the FUD is not that important for no coiners because they prefer to just trust you being in the know. Good point. I was talking to people with no coins I like talking to people with no coins over crypto, people who buy the dumbest assets like dog coins and NFTs. The best onboarding tool is explaining to someone how everything in the traditional world is a scam and the feelings they felt in their guts all their life were right. Then we can talk about HEX. I've got HEX and SAX for PLSX, by the way. Biffness, Salt HEX is saying if you paint all black, there's no contrast. All contrast is how you trigger interest over self-interest. Biffness, at the end of the day, it's all a property rights issue. We have the human right, all of us, to trade our resources for other forms of value and save the value for later without it disappearing. I completely agree. I just painted everything black to see what bleeds through. The result is a very focused endeavor that cuts out pretty much everybody. All sales are up, no stopping now. What's the purpose of daughter OA addresses? Like, who cares? Like, what? It's not your money. It's like, who cares if it's held in one account or multiple accounts? Like, you should be thankful that people are tracking it. Sebastian, if RH owns the majority, can institutions ever trust HEX enough? Who cares? You don't need institutions. Like, there's plenty of opportunity without putting institutions in charge. Institutions are middlemen. Middlemen should not be in charge of all of your finances. And currently, through the central banking system, they are. It's better to have checks and balances on everything. So, a deceptive reason. Like, if that's what you think, then sure, go with that. Like, if everything we've been talking about, like, if it doesn't make any sense to you, like, HEX isn't right for you, or like, you're just a fudster. And I'm glad you got banned already from the chat without me even doing it. So, like, good job, mods. Like, at some point, you're just concern trolling and you're kicked out. And you could be a really good concern troll, and there's like 5 other people out there out of 3,000 that are like butthurt that you got kicked out, but everybody else is celebrating it. So, like, go team. Even if us plebs trust RH, I don't know how institutions can tell their stakeholders they're investing in HEX with the uncertainty that the OA brings. Good, that's a feature, not a bug. Stop trying to get rich quick. Institutions would, they would make the price go up a lot, but they would also stop the price from going up further because they would sell and they would centralize and they would have different incentives than the individual people they represent. Institutions are made up of individual people. Those individual people, it's valuable for them to choose what they do with their money and take on their own risk, and stop leaving it to middlemen who have the wrong incentives at heart. Like, it's okay to not have institutions in HEX. I like that fact. I would rather not have institutions than have the price go up overnight, even though I'd make more money overnight. I would rather this grow organically without middlemen. If you don't like it, then maybe waiting isn't for you. That's why I think he should burn it. Well, what do you think is going to happen if somebody tries to fork the network and then he can't control the fork? So, like, that's another thing that's super valuable about the OA coins is, like, it helped block all these copycats from trying to steal all the value of the system. Like, and it's a nuanced thing, and it's not black and white. It's not like, like, all a good thing or a bad thing. But at the end of the day, like, crypto, it's a socially enforced network, but the power of the crowd is not always the smartest, and the power of the individual is not always the smartest. Like, that's why you have checks and balances. The OA is part of the checks and balances. If you wanted the OA to burn all the coins, then there would be more confidence in HEX, and then the price would get bought up, and then what? Like, and then it would be more vulnerable to attacks. Like, and then there would be the same amount of FUD anyway. Like, you can't get around the uncertainty that exists in the world in investing. Like, you don't deserve to make money if there's no risk. Like, if it's a certain thing, then, like, then why didn't everybody already buy it? There is uncertainty. You have to live with it. That's what you get rewarded for. Like, duh. Charity Dunning says, one of the things that makes me a big believer in RH is that he's in it for the glory. He already has his money, women, whatever he wants. He wants to be a god. How? By making us happy through wealth. I don't know that he said he wants to be a god, but, like, yeah, he wants to be a significant person in the world. Like, he already has enough money. He's not trying to sell HEX for that. I just mean that I don't take advice from people on nutrition, trucks, or crypto. My direction is set in stone, and I'm just along for the ride. I'll be buying HEX and bananas for a long time. Shout out to you, Bitfinesse. The truth is, we don't need institutional money. We just need regular people to absorb the supply. Imagine 1 million people all putting in $1,000 of value every year. Think of what that would do. Facts. I've put in my fair share. Yeah. Sebastian, we had the same issue with BTC. There was massive uncertainty for institutions. It's just meant that normies like us were able to secure positions before institutions. Yield speaks volume. Stake your HEX 5555 and join the 1%. High IQ, elite, diamond hands, long vision, big D, badass, visionary, cool kids. Hey, I like how you put that. They make a place for bored people. It's called government. Run for a government position so we have another representative who's not a financial idiot. You'll protect your bags along the way. Mike Rose, big up, Maddie. Thanks for all you do. Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for commenting. What are HEX competitors? Bitcoin is HEX main's competition. Pulse 777. Maddie, do you think Richard will hold off launching Pulse Chain with this bear market in place? The guy knows his stuff. I would be waiting until we see through the worst of it. What are your thoughts? I don't know what he's going to do because it doesn't benefit us to know because of traders coming into the situation. So this is a slight paradoxical situation where, like, I don't want to know when it's going to launch, but like, if I had my ideal scenario, it would be at the bottom of the bear market, and it would be with more features than it is currently in the testnet, which seems like that's what is happening, whether it's intentional or not. So. HEX is its real value based on the current market, not over, not under. I like that statement. Yes, RH is going to wait for the perfect time. Bitcoin and HEX are non-substitutable goods. The OA never sold a coin, did it? I don't think so. That's what people have said with their chain analysis. And, I plan to look into it myself and teach people more about chain analysis. It's a goal. I have lots of projects I'm working on, and you can't expect work from me in the future. Just because I've been consistent doesn't mean that I owe people anything, but as long as I keep enjoying doing this, and I keep getting something out of it, I'm likely to continue. So that's where I stand. It's like, I can't promise you that I'm going to teach you something, but it's one of the things I have on my to-do list, I guess. Not that I'm aware, audits suggest OA hasn't. I think this article could have been part of the reason that Gunther wasn't comfortable keeping the OA audit public, but I don't know that. I could have just asked him, but been busy. Ian's Pro, it honestly feels like an army of paid trolls have descended on Reddit in the last few weeks. The question is, who is incentivized to pay them? I think people are just having a negative experience with the bear market and want something to complain about. And I mean, maybe there's some sort of paid shill situation. I don't know. In fact, the OA, and people who were trying to get yield have gotten rug pulled a lot recently. And so it makes sense that there's more hate out there for yield producing things because people just don't understand them. In fact, the OA related addresses are actually accumulating more. That's what I thought. But I need to check my assumptions on that because I was trying to do the math on the OA has 93% of the supply, like, does that mean that it's been buying? And at first I thought yes, but now that I've been thinking about it more, I'm like, I need to see more chain analysis because that could have been an assumption that I got wrong. It could be that the OA is just is not market buying HEX, even though I said that I thought it was. We should find out. So Chad OA is buying back the HEX. Could be. Only one guy gets to sell the top, and it won't be me. Only one guy gets to buy the bottom, and it won't be me. Maximum gains come from holding. I'm here for maximum gains, no less. Yeah, we don't know who's going to buy the top and buy the bottom. I bought the bottom of Pulse Dogecoin, kind of by accident. I didn't know that I would, but I just put in my market order at just the right time. But then did I hold on to the gains? I don't know. I probably sold half of it back, like when it doubled or tripled or something. So it wasn't that much money. So at the end of the day, it was just the bragging rights, I guess. I have the transaction to prove it. Right? Part of history. And it felt terrible at the time, because like, who wants to buy something that is like at an all-time low? It doesn't feel good. People who are taking the right approach, I guess, to speculating. You think we complain about the price going up due to buy pressure? I don't know. Release the psyops, Maddie. Fire. Thanks, Maddie. Thank you so much. Yes, that must have been where I like finished doing my monologue. There's nothing better than trying to heal your fellow man. Yeah, that's what the outro is going to say. And I am running out of battery life here. Sure, that's the reason why we're here and not elsewhere. If I was the OA, I'd split it into thousands of pieces to hide my sell-in. Not saying RH did, but I'd do that. It could still be seen. If you were the OA and you were trying to trick people, you would send you would send it through a coin mixer, or you would do something creative with like V3 liquidity or something. Like, that's not what we see. Like, it doesn't matter if you split it into thousands of more addresses, because like the chain can still, we could still send a crawler bot on there and like look into all the addresses. Like, but the OA, that's the whole point. The OA is not trying to sell. It doesn't need to. It's more valuable for the OA to not sell. Where can I buy Ryan's course? Is that the person who wrote this article? I already forgot. Yeah. I don't think you want to. I'm not promoting that. Yeah, still be on the blockchain. There would be a way to hide it, but it's not happening. When Europe, Maddie? Kidding. Hey, I'm going to Ireland in September to speak at a longevity conference about HEX and crypto. I'm so excited. Why does Richard have to sell HEX at all? We sent him over $1 billion in Ethereum and other coins. That's another thing we need to check on, because there's an on-chain record of how much ETH was recycled, and I don't know. All I know is the total amount of ETH, which was like between like 1 and 2 million coins. But it could have been that much of that was recycled. I don't know. Be worth looking into. Wonder if this power cord will reach. All right, 10 more hours, right? Just kidding. Nice haircut, Maddie. It's a ruse. I've tricked you. I put my hair in a bun, then put the headphones over it. Thank you. Yeah, oftentimes when I put my hair up, people get it confused. I look better with short hair. I just like having long hair before it all falls out. Sup, gang? 80th episode. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for recognizing that, Hex Monkey. Good to see you. He states he wants more money. Okay. Well, go ahead and lock him up now, right? Mark figured it all out, folks. We're done packing up. Yeah, Bristology has been here for a year or two. If you're new and like you're not getting along, then you're the one who gets banned. Best effing crypto show ever created. Hey, thanks, Joe Hexotic. You helped create it, so uh, no wonder it's so good. Back to stacking cans. Yeah, yeah. Price of aluminum is way up. Like literally, my mods are allowed to ban whoever they want for any reason. Like, I trust them. They've been here. It's not easy to get a wrench in this show. Now, this guy, Gen Hex, gives a wrench to everybody who goes to his channel. We're going to see how the game theory works out on that, but I like it. It's different than other channels. And shout out to you for being here. You know, your show is pretty good, man. Like, I don't get to watch it all the time, but when I do, it's I like it. Joe Hexotic. Yeah. I like how Gen Hex, who I've met in real life at a Hex meetup, I like how he says that he's like the alternative, like like the Discourse Syndicate light, like the F and Hangout light or something. It's like it's funny because I mean, yeah, you guys are organic and you're doing your thing, and we appreciate that. That's what some people tune in for. It's like the authenticity. Um, Audit suggests the OA hasn't sold. The OA can't split up HEX without it being tradable. There's no centralized exchange where it can hide its funds. Totally. So I guess the value of HEX comes from its monetary policy when you compare it to the monetary policy of USD. That is where some people find value. If the US dollar was so good, people wouldn't want to get into cryptos. I would push back on that. The dollar is pretty good to some people. It's better than other fiat currencies. So I don't know. I like crypto better, but the dollar, like, there's a reason why some people like it. Or it's like the less of different evils in the fiat world, maybe. This recent Celsius mess just proves how useful trustless yield is. Yes. Hype man, you got it figured out. We're so far ahead of the game, it's not even funny. I was pretty surprised who I found myself talking to in the cell comments on YouTube. They admit they're turning over their keys. My sympathy for cell users never showed up. I don't like people getting wrecked. I saw one girl get really upset because there's an early end stake penalty, didn't do the research. That sucks. Okay, yeah. 86 million hex for Quattro Cinco isn't 500 billion. Maybe somebody's using stakehex.today, which gives a really generous, optimistic take on the payout per T-share and that kind of thing. Silence on timeout. Well, survived to get banned a different day then. Imagine having 10 years or less average stake length. Death and taxes is certainly 100%. Taxes for sure. I don't know. Didn't Dan the Hex Shark move to Dubai and isn't paying taxes because he was not born in the US? If you're born in the US, maybe taxes are a certainty. I you know, I pay taxes. You're creating enemies. Okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. Just staked some cheap HEX t-shirts for another 10 years. Oh, by the way, yeah, if you haven't followed me on another platform, you should do it now, because people like Mark are out there trying to get me banned from YouTube. So like, if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the content I make, then go ahead and subscribe. Go to allmylinks.com/allin, and I will stream on Twitter, on and what's the other one? Twitch, if I'm not on YouTube anymore. Hex is the flex. Just staked some cheap t-shirts for another 10 years. Boom. Does Ferrari increase longevity of life? Why not buy omega-3 instead of it? Why not buy omega-3 instead and sell it for hexagons for hex? I do have a referral link for omega-3 in the description, and I made like $10 off of that in like 3 months. So I think somebody used it. But at the end of the day, I recommend people just getting the cheaper and equally effective form of omega-3 from their local grocery store or pharmacy or anywhere. It's less expensive and should get the job done. I mean, like, I don't know that buying a Ferrari extends somebody's life, but I like that it seems like you're saying omega-3 is a good investment. I think it is for people who are not on blood thinners and make their own medical decisions. It's supposed to be part of your diet, so it's not so risky for most people, but check with your doctor. That is good if you ladder, but make sure you get enough 555 over the next year while it's still affordable. Once this goes up, it really goes up, the t-shirt rate. I'm getting excited now. Feel like BTC will at least go down once. Be ready, won't be a value like this for years. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like if somebody's threatening to report a channel, you would hope that YouTube would like literally see that. I know on Twitch you can see the things people said before they got banned, and YouTube has some features like that. So all you're gonna do is discredit yourself. And gosh, can you imagine getting banned from like Google services yourself for doing like a false report or like a revenge report? Like people who get banned from Google, you just lost all your Word documents like that you made in Google spreadsheets and Google Word shit, and you lost all your email, you lost like your operating system. Like they can mess you up. Wouldn't be like I wouldn't be out there like threatening people and stuff and like trying to screw up YouTube for everybody else. Like I would not want to do that. If you put $1,500 into Hex for now for 15 years, for even the potential payout of over 2 million, would you? That's a bet I'd take, and I did, and that's pennies to most Texicans. Yeah, I think the math works out like that. Jimmy Hex, thank you so much for your time. I have served 12 years in prison for being a drug addict. Show gives me hope. Your show gives me hope and keeps me on the right track to be successful. Wow, thanks for sharing. And I'm glad to be of service. I think that, when we work together as a decentralized community to improve ourselves and others, that it's a win-win situation. And that's another example of how, like every day you maintain your sobriety, that's another win in the book that, it's progress. And I'm proud of you for uh, turning things around in your life. That's not easy to do. And I'd recommend for anybody out there who's in that situation where they do want to turn around their life, remember that it's all about your people, places, and things. That's what defines your behavior more than something inside of you. It's the people who are around you. So what that means is like get around people who are staying out of trouble, avoid the people, places, and things that get you in trouble, and don't try to be strong, be smart. Sometimes being smart means taking the long way. But, and like the example I give to clients used to be like, if you buy your cigarettes like at a liquor store and you've had problems with alcohol abuse, then like go out of your way to buy them at a place where you can't buy liquor. Like even if you've been strong every day for a year or for 5 years, like you're still putting yourself at risk. Like, you being strong, it doesn't always pay off. Like it's better to be smart because you don't know what kind of burden you're going to have in the future when you make that your routine. So that's just an example for anybody out there who is wanting to change their own behavior. You have to change your people, places, and things. And changing your money and like being a part of the HEX community, that's a great way to basically to change your monetary environment. And I believe that if the world switches some of their value to HEX, then the world could be a better place because of aligning incentives with like future. Ladder to dump your bag and restake yield for 5555 every time when you have over 50 ladders. There you go. Since we're talking FUD, what if the SEC creates a new law stating that all proof of stake coins need to halt operations? Since HEX is a hybrid, what would happen? People would solve the problem, but it's not useful to like put effort into solving things that are less likely compared to the things that are likely. Like the more likely thing is that like that we wouldn't get the word out because we're worrying about problems that don't exist. So to me, like it's okay to work on that problem if you think you can contribute, but the people who could contribute to multiple things, like it's more helpful for them to contribute to things that are relevant now. And I got that philosophy, like I borrowed that from Richard, basically. It's like when he talks, if you go to hexsearch.io and type in imaginary horribles, then you can pull up every time Richard said something like that I just said. Super useful. What's the ladder for advanced people? Just Quattro Cinco? No, the ladder, like I have 2 ladders. One like big stakes and one small stakes, or like relatively speaking, like, and so that way if I got into an emergency, I could like emergency on the smaller ones or the bigger ones and still have something else left. Like that's an advanced ladder. But like I think it's helpful for people to keep some liquid or to have like shorter sticks too. SEC is a pleb, can't stop crypto. HEX liquidity has rocketed back up to 251 million, a 3-week high. Thanks for sharing, Blackwig. I find that interesting. Somebody said that Gerardo made a new tool and look into HEX that it shows the liquidity in a new or interesting way. And I haven't checked it out myself yet, but that's always good to know. And hexdailystats.com also shows. That front end is a trap, LOL. Are you talking about my front end? Man, it's not a trap. Check yourself. There are 96 new stakers, another 3-week high. Right on. No, we aren't upset. RH gives us hope. Maddie Allen gives us hope. Staking secures my future. Putting down my game for the world. Take it or leave it. Don't hate because you're insecure and have no directions. Saying it like it is. Another way to ask a FUD question is, if the US bans HEX, would that matter at all? Yes, that would matter. But it wouldn't be absolute. Everything came out of the singularity. Maddie going hard in the paint. Just got here, didn't get a notification. I was delayed in my start because I've been traveling. I still wanted to do it, but it just threw me off by a little bit. I apologize for that. I don't like waiting for other shows to start past their start time, but I do it all the time, so my bad. Mark just bought 2 HEX for $1 at the top. Maddie, this is a very good sum up. Thanks for putting it all together. My pleasure. There's a HEX song for Mark by Black Crypto, 2 for $1. I like that Mark is still watching. Mark was the same guy who came into our stream and called us gay boys. The first comment must be a real nice guy. And listening, sure. My phone is tapped now. I like how Mark's comments are still being read and discussed after we deleted them. LOL. How lame would this world be if everything was the same? All fields were the same. Yo, good point. Jimmy de Hex. Yeah. Only thing Mark is earning is free rent in our heads for a few minutes. Well, that was the point. The point of the article, the point of the title of the show is to bring in the FUD discussion. I'm glad we attracted more than our share of people who could learn. Shilling other coins, cryptos, or stock ideas, and deleting their comments is childish and draws viewers potential HEX. PLS expires away and call community toxic. Not good for onboarding. Well, guess what else is not good for onboarding? People who are streaming getting so annoyed at the audience that they stop streaming. So that's why I have boundaries. That's why I can block anybody I want. And I don't care how it looks. Like, if you don't like it, then you shouldn't have gotten into something so decentralized. Like, you know, we all have to protect our own sanity. Like, you know, this is not a democracy. This is my YouTube channel that I built. Like, I'm the one who has to read all the vile stuff that people write about me. Like, I get to choose where I draw the line. And some days it might be different than others. Like, you know, whatever. Fair inflation versus the banks get inflation. Big shout out to Special Agent Mark of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Yeah, right. FOMO Hex Sapiens. Hextra FOMO Sapiens. I do like his glamour shop profile picture. It's nice. To learn how inflation can be good, read up on Silvio Giselle. Interesting. In case you're new here, Hex inflation only goes to the stakers. That's the difference. Phenomenal point, Hex Monkey. Yeah, phenomenal point. I YOLO'd into Hex just over a year ago, and it's been quite a ride, better than any crypto up or down. Props to Manny for deciphering the chat and typos to form complete sentences. Yeah, sometimes. Chat is looking at the bones and Manny's about to sift through. That's right. Mark goes into the drive-through twice to ask where his dollar went after eating a Big Mac. Yo, go easy on the guy. But don't really. He said he has Hex and sacked, but then puts his own bags. Well, yeah. People should ask critical questions, but they shouldn't perma-FUD their own bags. How about that? No, please don't. Nobody should even joke about like going to like spam websites because they could be crypto phishing sites in disguise. You're still early to Hex, DCA. Why is Maddie reading all the deleted messages? Because they've populated into my StreamYard, and so I don't see the same exact thing as you see on YouTube. But it's because I was enjoying it. If I don't enjoy a comment, then I stop reading from that person. I never realized that Maddie, he shouldn't burn the coins. In case someone tries to fork Hex, he can still control the new fork. Yeah. There's no way to burn Hex, but stake it for T shares. Yeah. Or you could send it to an account where you've destroyed the private key. But good luck like proving that. So I think I'm wrapping up here, guys, because I can hear my buddy's back. Bananas forever. That's a good place to end it. Hex as a new world reserve currency. Again, Maddie, with the long, informative, consistent streams, we appreciate you, brother. My pleasure. My pleasure. The process of combating a million FUDs. Oh, I lost the comment. Dang, there's still so many good comments. Comment. Thanks for commenting. It pumps the stats. ETH is a scam. Maybe. Omega-3. That's right. Just want to thank you, Maddie, for being a part of my sobriety. I was early in Hex, and thanks to you, Joe, the price, and a few others, I'm coming up on 2 years of sobriety. Hey, congratulations and good work. Yeah, keep up the good work. Shout out to you. That's the real win right there. People having healthy life changes and behavior change. Smash the like, Crypto Gains Club. Good to see you there. The Mad Gains would be nothing without having been sober this whole time. Yeah. Maybe Mark was Ryan. Yo, the plot twist at the end. Hex is very complex and hard to understand. This might be a factor in gatekeeping itself. New onboards won't get it, and it slows mass adoption. That's a possibility. That's why it's not a sure thing. No one understands the internet or transmissions either. Adoption doesn't care. Interesting. It's a copy. It's a copy. Yeah. Okay, caught up. Thought you were done. Awesome. Well, here I am, just over 3 hours and starting to wrap it up. If we start banning bristology, we might as well pack it all up. That's right. Time like your money and generate yield. Pretty easy to understand. A wrenched society is a polite society, perhaps. Diamond Hands, what up? What's up? Are you going to be an RH co-defendant? I know, right? Like, who knows? We need Gunther on again, Maddie. It's an ongoing experience. We'll see how it pans out. Real reviews, Maddie. Fire and anger equals Maddie's show. Ironically, Mark came into our chat, never got a wrench because he got banned for his first comment. Oh, I get it. Wow, interesting. Where's Kareem at? In Miami. I love it when Maddie reads a comment and says the exact same thing as me before he sees my comment. Great minds think alike. Yo. Kareem's doing his own thing now. That's right. Yeah, he had his own. Well, he had a show with Sticker Up, and then I think they retired it or something. Yep, it could keep getting easier over time. Matcha is a new thing. People are just figuring out. Soon we'll all know how to do limit buys. Hey, Bran, it was good to see you yesterday. I loved that we sat next to each other in the Cubs game for part of it. Reserve your seat in the DeLorean before Maddie hits 88 miles per hour. That's right. Did you get a Rolex from RH? No, I didn't. Did you? Is he giving them out? I didn't know that was part of the deal. I was watching your stream and Maddie commented in the chat that Kareem is now doing Sticker Up show. Should I wait to stake 6666 on PHEX? It's up to you. Depends how high gas fees are for some people. Haven't seen Kareem here for a long time, and Wales ended this show too, but still does his own. That's that's what happens. Like, I think people get their own shows, and we're happy for them. Like, it's all good. Can't wait till Richard's 1 year Pulse Sacrifice stream with Maddie. That's right. There are so many names to announce that are participating in the online HEX conference that'll be happening in a month from today. You haven't gotten banned yet by me. I don't know. Like, you're on thin ice, my friend. If RH launches in June, we can celebrate another year of HEX and Pulse Chain every 6 months. Boom. Get away from those and out of the comfort zone will promote growth and strength. Kareem showed up on a whale show a couple weeks ago. That is correct. I'm glad they both could stream together again. Richard won't give away Rolexes. He is smarter than that. Unless you mean when he gave BitBoy HEX and it rose to 60K when BitBoy sold it, BitBoy didn't buy a Rolex. He bought mesh with it. Weird. Facts. I struggle with wanting to put money in HEX weekly, or many people say wait for 2 cents or 1 cent. It's part of the uncertainty. Go easy on the guy, but not really. Quote of the day. I did say that, didn't I? Should we be DCAing all the way to 0? That's up to you. Like, I can't tell you what to do. I like DCAing. I like DCAing in, DCAing out. Pulse coming soon. I hope so. I'm putting money in HEX Weekly, FYI. Shout out to you. Dan Best, what's up? Thanks for all the great content. My pleasure. Well, everybody, we caught up against all the odds. And so now we'll do the outro, and you'll see me back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays going into the future. Until then, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
It's from Maddie ALLin of HEX Therapy Live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Big videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. He does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff, like, as his gig, because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like, he helps heal people.